It was from the Cataclysm. I can illuminate the technological tree. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76. How about I go up and take a look next time? Beijing Point Office of the Speaker. At the moment when Zuan number 1 pierced the sky, representatively showed a somewhat gratified smile on his face. Point success. Dingling. Bell. A harsh ringtone rang from the side. Point representatively frowned subconsciously. Point he had postponed everything for the test flight of Zuan 1, so why was there still a call coming in? While thinking about it, Congressman Lee reached out and picked up the receiver of the landline phone on his desk. President, I'm Ko Liang K. Hearing the voice on the microphone, Councillor Lee's face instantly relaxed a little. He said with a smile, Academician Ko, I have seen the scene of Zuan 1 taking off. Chairman, that's not what I want to say. Ko Liang K swallowed slightly. Chairman, you have to be mentally prepared. Councillor Lee frowned and looked a little more serious. What? Is there something wrong with Zuan number 1? There is nothing wrong with Zuan number 1, Ko Liang K muttered in a low voice. Professor Liu Yongchang is the one who has the problem. Representative Lee, what do you mean? What happened to Professor Liu again? As soon as the words came out of his mouth, Congressman Lee was stunned. Point why did he say it again? Professor Liu followed Zuan number 1 up. The moment Ko Liang K's voice came through the microphone, Congressman Lee felt his eyes go dark. Point what the hell? Say it again. What happened to Professor Liu? Councillor Lee slammed the table, stood up suddenly, and shouted into the microphone anxiously. Ko Liang K sighed deeply. President, it was my fault. A few days ago, I heard him saying that he wanted to go to heaven and have a look. I didn't pay attention at the time, but, Councillor Lee reached out and covered his forehead. No, it's not your fault. This brat is really. How is Professor Liu's condition now? How is the safety of Zuan number 1? Forget it. Let me go to your place. Ko Liang K was stunned. Before he could speak, the call was hung up. Point. After hanging up the phone, Congressman Lee pondered for a moment, then picked up the phone again and dialed a number. Kaiming, come here. You have to be fast. Hang. Kaiming was slightly startled when he received the call from the chairman of the council. Although he didn't know what happened, he responded immediately. Okay, I'm nearby now. I'll be there in about 5 minutes. 5 minutes later. What? Liu Yongchang followed Zuan number 1. Hang. Kaiming's horrified shouts came from the chairman's office. Is this brat crazy? Han Kaiming gritted his teeth and whispered, this is a test flight. If something happens, the chairman of the council smiled bitterly and shook his head. I heard Ko Liang K say that this kid seems to have brought some escape equipment with him. Not only that, this kid even knows how to put on his own flight suit and fasten his seatbelt. Han Kaiming was stunned for a while. How dare you? This kid had a premeditated plan. The chairman of the congressman reached out and grabbed the coat on the chair and said, okay, stop talking nonsense. Contact the helicopter. We are going to the Aerospace Research Institute now. Zuan number 1, report your situation. Ko Liang K's voice was somewhat relaxed. Point. Now that it has reached synchronous orbit, it means that the quality of this aerospace plane is acceptable. Point soon. Baixun's report reached everyone's ears through the radio. Zuan number 1 is operating in good condition. The driver is in good health. Speaking of this, Baixun was silent for a moment and then added, Professor Liu is in good health. You can return at any time. Ko Liang K breathed a sigh of relief again and then turned his questioning eyes to the chairman of the assembly beside him, Congressman Lee. Next, Councillor Lee frowned slightly, then reached out and took the wireless phone from Ko Liang K with a nonchalant expression. Ahem. Liu Yongchang, I'm the chairman of the assembly. Can you hear me? Geosynchronous orbit. A black aircraft with a faint blue flame trailing from its tail slowly passed by. Lu Yongchang sat on the passenger seat of Zhuan number 1 with a stiff face, and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. Ahem. You can hear it, President. Why did you come to the institute? Hearing Lu Yongchang's cautious voice, Councillor Li snorted angrily. Snort. Can I not come? If I don't come again, are you going to go to the moon directly? Lu Yongchang sneered. That's not the case. The fuel of Zhuan 1 is not full. If it goes to the moon, it will probably not come back. Everyone in the research institute, hey, this brat. Han Kaiming blew his beard and glared at the radio device in front of him. What, is he really planning to go to the moon? Different from Han Kaiming's reaction, the chairman of the council said in a good voice, Yongchang, your current status cannot be tossed around so casually. You have to know that as the director of Xia State's space administration, since you have set the development policy of Xia State in the next few years, you are responsible for the 1.4 billion people of Xia State. Do you understand? Lu Yongchang was silent for a while. His tone became more serious, and he said softly, President, I understand. I came up this time mainly for my next research project. Only after seeing the space did I truly realize the insignificance of human beings. Member Li chuckled. Why is the scenery up there so stunning? LV Yongchang responded without hesitation. Of course. Member Li pondered for a moment and said jokingly, how about I'll go up and take a look next time. Ahem. Professor Lu, don't talk nonsense. Ko Lianke on the side finally couldn't help it and coughed hard. What a joke. It's okay for Lu Yongchang to go up, but if even the chairman of the council goes to the synchronous orbit, this matter will be a big deal. LV Yongchang. Ahem. Chairman, let's talk about business. I think Xiaoguo's current pace is still too slow. The chairman's pupils shrank slightly. Is this too slow? Without waiting for the chairman to speak, Lu Yongchang continued to say, since Xiaoguo already has an aerospace plane, then the Moon Palace project can be implemented next. Our goal is to build a fully automatic mining equipment on the moon. The chairman pondered for a moment, and a gleam of light flashed in his eyes as the chairman of the parliament. He naturally knew that once the Xiaoguo Moon Palace project was implemented, the United States would inevitably use some countermeasures. He didn't say much, just nodded slowly and said, this matter is not urgent. Wait until you land safely. We will discuss it carefully. Hearing this, Ko Liang on the side breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly ordered, Bei Yixun, you can return. Be careful. Chapter 77. The United States lost air supremacy. America, the White House. From the moment Zhuan 1 took off, Albert's office was filled with a dead atmosphere. Moulton, keep an eye on this Zhuan number 1. The moment Zhuan number 1 disappeared into the clouds, Albert sternly said to Moulton in front of him with a gloomy face, if we lose it, you, the director, don't have to do it anymore. Moulton's face turned slightly pale, and he stretched out his hand to wipe the cold sweat on his forehead. Then he hurriedly took out his mobile phone from his pocket and made a call. Okay, see, listen, the situation is urgent. Let me activate all NASA surveillance satellites. I want to know the real-time information about the Zhuan 1 that Zhuo just took off. A female voice came from the microphone. Director Moulton, are you sure you want to use all NASA surveillance satellites? The damage this caused. Shut up. Moulton looked at Albert's slightly gloomy eyes, and white hairs of sweat broke out on his back in anxiety. I will be responsible for any losses. Now, tell the staff to get Zhuan immediately. Send the detailed flight data to me. OKC was stunned. Mr. Moulton, are you FXXK? Oval Office. Moulton cursed and hung up the phone. Then he quickly ran to Albert and whispered, Your Excellency, I need to use your computer. Albert nodded gloomily without saying anything. A few minutes later, Moulton took a long breath. Mr. President, the data has been sent. It has to be said that NASA's surveillance satellites are still very powerful. Point on the computer in front of Albert. The high definition pictures and flight data of Zhuan-1 can be seen at a glance. Looking at the dense data that was constantly being refreshed, Albert frowned tightly. He closed his eyes slightly, reached out and rubbed his eyebrows. Anthony, come and take a look at these data. Anthony did not dare to neglect the president's order and immediately took a step forward and looked at the computer screen on his desk. The moment he saw the data, Anthony's pupils shrank suddenly and he exclaimed, "What? This is impossible." Anthony's reaction made Albert's heart sink. This is not a good sign. What's going on? Albert frowned and asked in a low voice, "Is there anything wrong with this data?" Anthony swallowed slightly, his blue pupils trembling slightly. Its speed actually reached Mach 5. Albert didn't have much idea about these data. Mach 5. What happened to Mach 5? Faced with Albert's somewhat naive question, Anthony smiled bitterly and said with a pale face, "Your Excellency, the current US fighter jets have a maximum speed of around Mach 3. Once an air battle breaks out, we may even hit each other's butts. Can't even see it." Albert's breath suddenly suffocated, and he waved his hands nonchalantly and said, "What about the missile? We can shoot it down directly with the missile." The bitterness in Anthony's eyes became even stronger. That's where the problem lies. Except for some specific air-to-air missiles. Most air-to-air missiles in the world currently only have a speed of about Mach 4. Our missiles couldn't even catch up to the plane. As for air-to-air missiles with higher speeds, Your Excellency, I'm not discouraging. Air-to-air missiles below Mach 6 are basically useless against them. If Zhao had not lied, the endurance of this aerospace plane that uses nuclear fusion as energy would be far beyond our imagination. The missile is equipped with fuel, which may not be enough to consume it. Albert's face suddenly turned as dark as a big iron pot. This is just a joke. Chasing, you can't catch up. Consuming, you can't catch up. Just as the two fell into silence, Moulton's exclamation sounded from the side. It accelerated again. The moment he heard these words, Anthony's heart skipped a beat. Looking at the straight up speed and height on the computer screen, Anthony's face turned gloomy. Your Excellency, I don't think we need to discuss this anymore. This plane has now reached the Earth's low Earth orbit, and its speed is about Mach 23, which is what we often call the first cosmic speed. I don't know where its limit is. At least, looking at it now, even the fastest intercontinental missile we can launch will probably not gain much benefit from it. Albert didn't speak, just stared at the computer screen in front of him. As time goes by, the speed of Zhuan-1 is still rising, and with it, the height of Zhuan-1 is also rising. As the numbers on the computer screen continued to rise, the faces of the three people became increasingly ugly. Albert looked gloomy and said nothing. On the screen, the two numbers 36,000 kilometers and Mach 30, 10.2 km/s. Stung his eyes deeply. Even he knew what these two numbers meant. Seeing that Zhuan-1's flight data began to decline, Albert slowly breathed a sigh of relief. Anthony, what do you think is the limit of this aerospace plane? Anthony took a deep breath, straightened up and said softly, Your Excellency, this is not important anymore. You just need to be clear that from now on, the United States has lost air supremacy in front of Zhao state. Albert fell silent. That's right. In this case, the limit data of Zhuan-1 is no longer important. Even if it can break through the second cosmic speed to go to the moon, it has nothing to do with the United States. How should we guard against it? After a long silence, Albert took a deep breath and asked softly. Anthony's eyes were full of bitterness, and he shook his head slowly. Mr. President, we can't defend it, although it is not clear whether this Zhuan-1 carries weapons, but with its flight altitude, speed, and endurance, I can tell you responsibly that no country on Earth can resist its attack. As long as Xiago is willing, the White House may be reduced to ashes in a few minutes. The moment he heard this, Albert's pupils shrank suddenly. Morton, Albert said hoarsely, from now on, promote the Pathfinder project at all costs, Mr. President. Anthony was startled and reminded in a low voice, at this time, we should not compete with Xiago. We have lost the qualification for this competition. Albert closed his eyes slightly and then opened them suddenly with a flash of madness. No, as long as we occupy Mars first, the United States will still have a chance to turn over. From now on, suspend all unnecessary domestic expenditures, and all funds will be invested in scientific research projects. I don't believe that with so many years of foundation, we can't beat Xiago. Chapter 78 Biosphere 2 Project. 9:30 that evening. LV Yongchang, who had just stepped off Zhuan number 1, naturally had no idea what was happening in the United States. Of course, if he knew the pessimistic thoughts of Albert and others, he would probably laugh his head off. This is a typical cognitive error caused by information asymmetry. Although Zhuan number 1 is powerful enough, it cannot carry weapons at all with its current fuselage structure. Let alone missiles. It cannot even release the simplest tungsten rod. What's more, the current Zhuan no 1's primary task is not combat, but to go to the moon for some scientific research. Therefore, in the short term, LV Yongchang has no plans to change its fuselage structure. Simply put, except for its first class ability to run away, the current Zhuan number 1 is completely a flower stand without any combat capability. Xiago time, 11:30 p.m. in the office of Councillor Li in Beijing. Councillor Li handed a latest document from the United States to LV Yongchang with a solemn expression. Yongchang, take a look at this document. LV Yongchang reached out to take the still warm A4 printed paper. When he saw the title, his eyebrows suddenly raised. The United States announced that NASA's funding this year will be increased to $500 billion. Wow. A trace of surprise flashed across Lu Yongchang's face. Albert is really willing to spend. This is 10 times the funding of previous years. Member Li nodded solemnly. This news just came. It is estimated that Zhuan number 1 has given them a bit of a stimulus. This is also what I'm worried about. If the Moon Palace project is launched now, the reaction from the United States may be even greater at that time. What Xiago needs most now is a period of stable development. LV Yongchang smiled and waved his hand and said, Chairman, in my opinion, this should not be a problem. In fact, the faster we speed up the progress, the safer our situation will be. Oh. Member Li raised his eyebrows suddenly. What do you mean, Senator? You see, since we launched the Moon Palace project, the South Gate project and the Heavenly Palace project, the attention of the United States has been diverted unconsciously. After proposing the Mars Pathfinder project, the United States has increased NASA's research funding by a full 10 times. Speaking of this, LV Yongchang's smile became even more intense. I believe that the United States, with such a large stall, should not have the energy to deal with Xiago. Senator, do you know a term often mentioned on the internet? The Strategic Deception Bureau. LV Yongchang said happily. Now it seems that the United States is completely confused. The purpose of my announcing the 3 plans has been achieved. It's still a familiar formula, still a familiar taste. Everything seems to be a reenactment of history decades ago. It's just that after the opponent changed, the United States has changed from an advantage to a disadvantage. I understand. Councillor Li nodded slowly, his expression slightly relaxed. Then according to you, next, Xiago should focus on building an automatic mining device on the moon. LV Yongchang nodded, then shook his head. Not only that, there is another more important matter. Restart the Biosphere 2 project. 3 days later, a red banner was hung at the entrance of Sandaocal University. Warmly welcome all academicians and professors to our school to attend the meeting. The big red banner at the entrance attracted countless students to watch. What's going on? What kind of meeting is our school going to hold? So grand. A girl with long hair frowned and turned to the person next to her and asked, Yutong, did you hear what your tutor said? Beside her, a girl wearing a white chiffon dress, a tall ponytail, and a pure face, was looking up at the big red banner at the school gate. Hearing the question from the people around him, Su Yutong frowned slightly, subconsciously reached out to adjust her frameless glasses, and shook her head hesitantly, saying, I haven't heard of any important meetings. How about I'll go ask later. A Trace of regret flashed in the eyes of the long-haired girl. Well, I thought you knew some inside information, so. Yongchang rolled her eyes and said unhappily, where do you get so much inside information? I'm just an ordinary student under my tutor now. Ordinary? The girl looked at Yongchang in surprise. Professor Guan Hualian took a fancy to me and accepted me as a student in my junior year. You call this ordinary? I heard that Professor Guan Hualian even looked at me. I won't be an ordinary graduate student. How can it be so exaggerated? Yongchang said with a wry smile. Although Mr. Guan's requirements for students are indeed higher, it is also for our own good. Scientific research cannot tolerate any mistakes. The long-haired girl's eyes were full of amazement, and she sighed repeatedly. I really don't know what you went through in your sophomore year, and suddenly it was like you got it. If I remember correctly, our advanced mathematics were originally at the same level, right? As she said, the long-haired girl rolled up the book in her hand into a microphone and put it in front of Yongchang. Let me interview the new top student in our applied physics department. What exactly makes you study so hard? Looking at the curious eyes of the people around her, Yongchang's pretty face turned slightly red, and a bit of shyness was revealed in her slightly cold voice. Okay, Chen Yun, don't talk nonsense. I'm not a top student. Don't forget, there is a real top student in our class. As she said this, Yongchang's mind emerged with a figure who sat next to her and solved problems more than half a year ago. Huh? You mean Professor Lu? That's not a top student. Chen Yun curled her lips. That's a god of learning. To be honest, if I hadn't seen it on the Xiaguo news, I wouldn't even believe that such a great person is in the same class as us. But then again, Professor Lu, it seems that I haven't heard from him since the nuclear fusion, and I don't know where he went. Hearing this, Yongchang's eyes dimmed slightly. From that day on, she never saw him in the library again. She pursed her lips slightly, shook her head and said, I don't know either. Maybe he is conducting some secret research mission. The small fusion reactor reported in the Xiaguo news last time might have been developed by him. Well, come on. We are really. Chen Yun smiled and pulled Yongchang's sleeve. Is it our turn to worry about Professor Lu's affairs? Let's go. I'm almost starving. If you don't hurry up, be careful that the good dishes in the cafeteria will be snatched away by others. Yongchang retracted his gaze, shook his head lightly, and threw away the distracting thoughts in his mind. As long as he keeps climbing up, he will meet again one day, right? Or thought flashed through Yongchang's mind. Chapter 79. Are you interested in coming to the laboratory to see the world? Sandaokou University canteen. Yongchang carefully carried the plate and found a corner with Chen Yun where there were not many people. After putting down the plate, Chen Yun breathed a sigh of relief and complained softly, I've been delayed at the school gate for too long. There are too many people in the canteen today. Yongchang ignored Chen Yun's complaints, just sat on the chair, staring blankly at the plate in front of her. Hello. Seeing Yongchang like this, Chen Yun frowned slightly, stretched out her hand and shook it gently in front of her. What are you thinking about? So absent-minded. Yongchang suddenly came back to her senses, shook her head slowly, and said with a smile, nothing. I just think that the meeting is a bit strange. After all, I didn't hear any rumors. Chen Yun curled her lips and said unhappily, why think about these? Eat quickly. Don't forget, you still have to go to Professor Guan later. Before she finished speaking, Chen Yun's eyes were attracted by the scene at the canteen gate. Yongchang, look, if I'm not mistaken, that person should be Academician Ko Liang K, right? Shouldn't he be at the National Aerospace Research Institute of Xia? Why did he come to Sandaokou University? Yongchang was stunned and subconsciously turned his head to look at the cafeteria door. I saw an old man with grey hair and a white coat standing at the cafeteria door. It seems to be Academician Ko Liang K. Yongchang whispered, maybe he is here to attend that meeting. It seems that the level of the meeting held by Sandaokou University this time is quite high. Chen Yun sighed repeatedly. Even a big shot like Academician Ko is here. Just as Yongchang was about to turn her head and continue eating, a figure came into her sight. A boy in a white coat and with an upright posture quickly walked to Academician Ko Liang K, who was slightly hunched, and patted Academician KO on the shoulder with his hand familiarly. Then, the two walked out of the cafeteria door, talking and laughing. The moment she saw the boy's profile, Su Yutang's heart jumped. It's him. Although the two had only met once in the true sense, she still recognized him at a glance. Subconsciously, Su Yutang stood up suddenly. Yutang? What's wrong with you, Chen? Yun's voice full of doubt came from the side. No, nothing. Su Yutang smiled awkwardly. I suddenly remembered something. I have to go to Professor Guan quickly, Chen. Yun was stunned and subconsciously said, but you haven't eaten yet. No matter what, you should eat first. I'm full. I'm leaving first. You eat slowly. After saying that, without waiting for Chen Yun to reply, Su Yutang hurriedly left with the plate. It must be said that there are really many people in the cafeteria at mealtime. When Su Yutang squeezed out of the crowd, the figure was no longer seen on the road. Looking at the slightly empty sidewalk, Su Yutang's eyes flashed with a trace of loneliness. Unfortunately, she didn't catch up. While regretting, she also felt a little fortunate in her heart. Fortunately, she didn't catch up. Otherwise, she didn't even know what identity she should use to greet Lu Yongchang. Su Yutang took a deep breath and turned to walk towards Professor Guan Hualiang's office. Knock, knock, knock. At the door of the office, Su Yutang raised her hand and knocked gently on the door. Professor Guan, are you there? The next moment, Guan Hualiang's voice came from the door. Yutang, come in. The door is not locked. Hearing this, Su Yutang subconsciously turned the door handle, pushed the door open and walked in. Professor Guan, I have already done the task you assigned yesterday. Seeing the two people sitting on the sofa, Su Yutang's pupils shrank suddenly. Yutang, don't worry about the homework. I'll introduce you. This is Academician Ko Liang from the Institute of Aerospace Research. You should know it, right? Guan Hualiang pointed to the old man on the sofa with a smile, and then pointed to the young man next to him. This one, he should be in the same class as you, Professor Lu. Su Yutang said softly with a tremor. Do you know this guy LV Yongchang? Guan Hualiang was slightly stunned, and then cast his inquiring eyes at LV Yongchang. LV Yongchang's brain was in a state of downtime at this time. Su Yutang? He could even meet this? Originally, the main purpose of him and Ko Liang coming here was to get their graduation certificates and to get the certificate of lifetime honorary professor of Sandaokao University. But now, the script seemed to be a little beyond his expectations. Yongchang? Guan Hualiang's voice came, interrupting LV Yongchang's thoughts. He suddenly came back to his senses and looked at Su Yutang in front of him with complicated eyes. I know him, Guan Hualiang said happily. Since I know him, I won't introduce him anymore. Hey, old man Guan, what do you mean? Ko Liang was immediately unhappy. They know each other, but I don't. Guan Hualiang rolled his eyes at Ko Liang and said unhappily. Okay, you don't care about anything. You want to get involved in everything. Su Yutang, a student I accepted not long ago, is now a junior. Ko Liang was slightly stunned, then raised his eyebrows slightly. Junior? When did you, Guan Hualiang, accept undergraduates as students? Why, now you don't have a single reliable graduate student. Hey, I say, don't underestimate undergraduates. Hearing Ko Liang's words, Guan Hualiang immediately became anxious. What's wrong with undergraduates? If you really count, isn't Lu Yongchang also an undergraduate? Ko Liang, ahem. What you said is meaningless. Is Lu Yongchang an ordinary person? From what you said, this girl is still a good seedling? Ko Liang hurriedly changed the subject. Guan Hualiang's eyes showed a bit of pride. That's not true. Now, she has completed all the undergraduate courses by herself. Some time ago, she also solved a small project independently. Although it is not very difficult, it is also beyond the level of most graduate students. Ko Liang nodded thoughtfully and looked at Su Yutang carefully. According to you, she is a good seedling for scientific research. When he saw Su Yutang looking at Lu Yongchang's eyes, he was stunned and quickly turned his head to look at Lu Yongchang beside him. Lu Yongchang turned his head and met Ko Liang's eyes with a puzzled look. Ko Liang K's eyes looked back twice. Gradually, his eyes became weird. Ahem. Ko Liang K's heart moved slightly, and he coughed softly. Su Yutong, right, seeing Su Yutong looking at him, Ko Liang K said quietly, how about it? Are you interested in coming to the laboratory to see the world? Chapter 80, Keep the wealth within the family. As soon as he finished speaking, Guanhua Liang, who was behind the desk, suddenly widened his eyes. Hey, let me tell you, Leo Ko, you can't rob people like this, right? Ko. Liang K rolled his eyes angrily. What do you know? Forget it. Even if I tell you, you won't understand. You. Tong, believe me, I won't lie to you. Going to hang out in the laboratory is definitely more useful than studying with this old guy. The corners of Su Yutang's eyes twitched slightly, and she turned to look at Professor Guan Point at this time. Guanhua Liang's face turned red and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. He was obviously angry at Ko Liang K's words. Seeing this, Su Yutang quickly shook his head. Academician Ko, thank you for the invitation, but, Guan. Hua Liang's eyes suddenly lit up, and his breathing became much easier. He looked at Ko Liang K in front of him with a proud look on his face. How's it going? I don't think they want to go with you. Didn't you expect that? Ko. Liang K gritted his teeth bitterly, and glared at Guanhua Liang. You old man. Guan is really. Come on, come out, and I'll talk to you properly. After saying that, Ko Liang stood up, grabbed Guanhua Liang's sleeve, and walked out of the office. Hey, wait a minute, what can't you say here? You will know if you come with me. Ko Liang K said in a low voice, I'm really pissed off by you. Seeing the two old men dragging each other out of the office, a look of surprise and worry flashed in Su Yutang's eyes. Professor Guan, nothing will happen, right? Su Yutong murmured to himself. Don't worry, don't look at it like that just now. The relationship between these two people is actually very good. Nothing will happen. Lu Yongchang's voice suddenly sounded. Su Yutang trembled slightly, and then she realized that she and Lu Yongchang were the only two people left in the office. In just a moment, Su Yutang's mind went blank. Hello. As soon as the words came out of his mouth, Su Yutang wanted to slap his mouth. What are you talking about? Lu Yongchang glanced at Su Yutang, who was blushing in front of him, with a strange look on his face, and nodded slightly. Hello, thank you for helping me solve the problem last time. As soon as the words were spoken, a trace of regret flashed in Su Yutang's eyes. Does anyone talk like this? As for Lu Yongchang, his expression became even weirder. It's okay, it happened more than half a year ago. There is nothing to say thank you for. The atmosphere in the office gradually became awkward. Outside the office. Stop. Guanhua Liang shook Ko Liang K's hand away angrily. Can we finally talk about it now? What kind of medicine are you selling in your good? I told you in advance that Su Yutang is my favorite, so don't have any thoughts about her. Ko Liang K rolled his eyes angrily. I said old man Guan, did you really not see it at all? Guan Hua Liang frowned. What do you see? Yes. Ko Liang K sighed suddenly and looked at Guanhua Liang helplessly. I finally discovered that you are just like that brat Lu Yongchang. They both have a wooden head. Hearing this, Guanhua Liang's frown deepened. Suddenly, there was a slight movement in his heart. His pupils dilated a bit, and he lowered his voice and said, wait, I seem to understand. You mean, this girl Su Yutang is interested in Lu Yongchang? Otherwise, didn't you see the look in Su Yutang's eyes just now? TSK. So, is this the reason why you're trying to steal the wall? Ko Liang K glanced at Guanhua Liang with hatred. You are really, this kid Lu Yongchang is a treasure. You have seen the changes in Zhiguo in the past 6 months. At present foreign countries have no chance and dare not take action against him. But don't forget that in addition to some tough methods, they can also use some other tricks. What if they use a honey trap? Hiss. Guanhua Liang's expression turned serious for a moment. What you said seems to make some sense. That's right. Ko Liang K became more and more excited as he spoke, with a hint of gossip in his eyes. As the old saying goes, good news should never flow to outsiders. With the genes of this kid, Lu Yongchang There is no way he can take advantage of the barbarians outside. I think we might as well. Squeak. Just as Su Yutang dug her toes on the ground in embarrassment, the office door opened. She breathed a sigh of relief subconsciously. Ahem. Yutang, I thought about it and found that you do lack some laboratory experience. At this time, Guan Huoliang was completely different from before, and he said happily, next, you will go to the laboratory to be an intern. Although your current level is not good enough, seeing the world will be good for your future scientific research career. So, Yutang, she looked at Professor Guan in front of her in confusion, and for a moment she was confused about what was going on. On the other hand, Lu Yongchang's expression changed slightly. Professor Guan, the laboratory you are talking about is Guan. Huoliang glanced at Lu Yongchang with a surprised look on his face, and the smile in his eyes became stronger. Didn't Lao Ko tell you? It's the Xia Kingdom's #1 laboratory that you are in charge of. So, Yutang, Lu Yongchang. Lu Yongchang clutched 2 certificates and left Guan Huoliang's office with a confused look on his face. Congratulations, Professor Lu, you are now a professor in the true sense. Ko. Liang Ke seemed to be in a good mood, and his whole body was filled with a cheerful atmosphere. LV Yongchang looked at the certificates in his hand speechlessly. One was the graduation certificate of Sandao University, which was also the undergraduate certificate, and the other was the certificate of lifetime honorary professor of Sandao University. These 2 certificates did not surprise him. After all, with his contribution, if the time for the academician selection had not yet arrived, it would be reasonable to give him the status of academician. It was Su Yutang's change that surprised him a little. I still remember that half a year ago, this girl couldn't even solve a high-level math problem. I don't know what happened in the past 6 months. Just like in the last life, LV Yongchang's eyes moved slightly. If he remembered correctly, Su Yutang in the last life also stood out from a group of ordinary people in just over a year and eventually became his assistant. Thinking that Su Yutang would often appear in his sight in the future. Countless complex thoughts arose in Lu Yongchang's mind. Cause and effect, fate. These things are really mysterious. He and Su Yutang only met once in this life, but in the end, it developed to this point. He shook his head gently and threw away the distracting thoughts. In any case, he was not qualified to talk about these romantic matters now. Let's go. We should prepare to attend the meeting. Lu Yongchang took a deep breath and said softly to Ko Liang Ke. Chapter 81 Helium Trioxide and Illuminate. The auditorium of Sandao University was crowded with people. The top academicians and professors of mining and mechanical engineering and Xiago took their seats. In addition, several inconspicuous biology professors were sitting in a corner of the auditorium. Do you know what this meeting is for? A slightly younger professor couldn't hold back and asked the professors around him. I don't know. Don't look at me. I don't know either. Not to mention the purpose of the meeting. I don't even know who called this meeting. Hiss. When you say that, it seems that I didn't see the specific name. A professor with graying temples frowned slightly and whispered, I came to the meeting after receiving a notice from above. Me too. Just as everyone was talking, the door of the auditorium closed with a bang, and several soldiers in neat military uniforms began to distribute confidentiality agreements to everyone. Seeing this scene, the pupils of the people in the audience shrank a little. This conference is quite a big event. I just looked around, and most of the people here are academicians and professors from the mining and mechanical engineering departments. An academician said softly, I guess Xiago may have discovered some large mines that are difficult to mine. No, I haven't heard that Xiago has discovered a mineral vein recently. At the same time, LV Yongchang, dressed in formal attire, slowly walked up to the podium. Looking at the people below the stage, he straightened his expression and reached out to turn on the projector. Everyone, let me introduce myself first. I'm LV Yongchang, the first director of the Xiago Space Agency. Since everyone has signed a confidentiality agreement, I won't be secretive. The purpose of convening you this time is mainly to promote the Moon Palace project. As LV Yongchang finished speaking, a line of large characters appeared on the projection screen. Fully Automated moon mining plan boom. In an instant, the auditorium was filled with discussions. The academician who just speculated that Xiago had discovered a large mine stared at the large characters on the projection screen with his eyes wide open. Wow, this is a real big mine. First, we need to clarify the mineral resources on the moon, as he said that. Yongchang clicked the mouse and switched to PPT. A high definition thumbnail of the moon appeared on the projection screen. 40% oxygen, 20% silicon, 14% aluminum, calcium and a small amount of titanium, manganese, magnesium, chromium, and the most important helium-3 resource. The main purpose of the Moon Palace project is to obtain the rich helium-3 resources in the lunar soil. The content of helium-3 in the lunar soil is estimated to be more than 1 million density. For every density of helium-3 extracted from the lunar soil, 6300 density of hydrogen, 70 density of nitrogen and 1600 density of carbon can be obtained. In addition to these basic resources, illuminate in the lunar sea basalt is also a key project of the Moon Palace project. In order to realize the Moon Palace project, we now urgently need an integrated lunar mining equipment that integrates automatic mining, classification and refining. This is also your next task. As Yongchang's voice fell, the auditorium fell into silence. Kang Xingbang looked at Yongchang on the podium with trembling eyes and swallowed slightly. As a senior academician of the Department of Mechanical Engineering and the Xia Academy of Sciences, Kang Xingbang could not believe his eyes. Does mankind, no, does Xia really have the ability to go to the moon for large-scale mining now? He slowly raised his hand and gestured to Yongchang. On the stage. Yongchang immediately noticed Kang Xingbang's raised right hand. The moment he saw the old man's face, his pupils suddenly shook. It's him, academician Kang Xingbang. Countless memory fragments emerged in his mind. In his previous life, academician Kang Xingbang's name was known to everyone. Although the underground city plan was proposed by Yongchang, it was academician Kang Xingbang who really put it into reality. It is no exaggeration to say that Kang Xingbang overcame most of the difficulties in the construction of giant underground cities by his own efforts. Therefore, in his previous life, academician Kang Xingbang was even hailed as the savior of human civilization. Unexpectedly, I would be able to bring Kang Xingbang to this meeting. Yongchang took a deep breath with a look of respect and said softly, Academician Kang, do you have any questions? Kang Xingbang was slightly stunned and subconsciously asked, Professor Lu, do you know me? Yongchang smiled and nodded and said meaningfully, who doesn't know the name of academician Kang of the Department of Mechanical Engineering? Facing Yongchang's praise, Kang Xingbang's old face blushed slightly and he waved his hands repeatedly and said, well, it's just some small achievements, not worth mentioning, not worth mentioning. Let's get back to the point. I wonder if academician Kang has any doubts about this plan. Kang Xingbang's face was slightly serious and he asked softly, Professor Lu, the current Xia country should not have the ability to send large quantities of materials into space, right? Not to mention building such complex mechanical equipment on the moon. Sometimes, I speak bluntly, I hope Professor Lu doesn't mind. Faced with Kang Xingbang's question, Lu Yongchang smiled and waved his hand and said, it's okay, academician. Kang should be aware of the Xuan No. 1 space plane that was tested not long ago, right? Seeing Kang Xingbang nod, Yongchang said after a moment of silence, Xuan No. 1 can carry 10 kinds of materials to the lunar surface at one time. Kang Xingbang's pupils shrank suddenly. 10 kinds of materials? So many? But soon, his brows furrowed. The 10 density materials seem to be a lot, but compared with the huge mining equipment, it's still a little less. Don't worry, academician Kang, listen to me. Yongchang said with a smile. Let me do the math for you. Outside the atmosphere, the maximum speed of Xuan No. 1 can reach the second cosmic speed, which is 11.2 km/s, and the distance between the Earth and the Moon is about 400,000 kilometers, including the time for takeoff, landing and unloading. It is conservatively estimated that it takes about 2 days to go back and forth to days to transport 10 density materials. Doesn't it seem more reliable? In addition, LV Yongchang's mouth corners rose slightly, and a bright smile appeared on his face. The Zhuan No. 2 project is under development, and its transportation capacity is expected to reach 50 to 80 densities. How about it, Academician Kong? Do you have any questions, Kong? Xingbang shook his head in shock, and said in a difficult tone, if what Professor Lu said is true, then I have no problem. LV Yongchang nodded gently, and turned back to the stage. The rough project plan has been placed in the drawer of the table in front of you. You can check it yourself. Feel free to ask any questions you have. As soon as the words fell, the sound of paper shuffling could be heard from every corner of the auditorium. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82. How about you take charge of this project? Like everyone else, Kong Xingbang also hurriedly took out a thick plan from the drawer in front of him. When he opened the plan and saw the content, Kong Xingbang's breath suddenly choked. The whole project is divided into 3 parts. The first part is mining equipment. Automatic mining equipment is composed of various excavation devices. After the mining equipment digs out the ore will be transported to the second part of the entire mining device, the classification equipment, through the crawler. After the ore is subdivided, the transport crawler will transport it to the most critical third part. Smelting device. All ores will be smelted on the surface of the moon. On the one hand, it is to reduce the pressure of subsequent transportation. After all, after removing a large amount of impurities, the weight of the ore will be greatly reduced. On the other hand, it is to save costs. There is no atmosphere on the surface of the moon, which is simply an excellent place for ore smelting. The natural vacuum environment can reduce a lot of unnecessary expenses in the ore smelting process. As for the helium-3 in the lunar soil, there is a special production line. First, the excavated lunar soil will be heated to more than 700 degrees Celsius at this time. The helium-3 in the lunar soil will be separated from it. After the helium-3 is successfully separated, it is necessary to use a neutron adsorption film to absorb and extract the atomic helium-3. As for the last step, it is natural that the Zhuan series of space shuttles will transport these helium-3 resources back to Earth to serve as fuel for the third generation controlled nuclear fusion device. After reading the entire plan, Kong Xingbang exhaled deeply. The plan is very detailed. Every step is designed just right. But this does not mean that it has no flaws. On the contrary, this plan has a most fatal flaw. It only has a framework and no detailed implementation plan. After noticing this, Kong Xingbang's brows frowned instantly. Academician Kong, what do you think of this plan? LV Yongchang noticed Kong Xingbang's expression and asked immediately. Kong Xingbang fell into hesitation. If you say this kind of thing directly, it will offend people, but thinking that this plan involved a lot of things, he gritted his teeth and told the problems he noticed. To Kong Xingbang's surprise, Lu Yongchang not only did not show any displeasure, but laughed out loud. Ha ha ha, you are worthy of being Academician Kong. Your vision is really sharp. Mechanical design is not my strong point. Random design can only add to the jokes, so I just left it blank. Kong Xingbang's eyes suddenly became strange. From what he said, this plan was not completed by Lu Yongchang alone, right? When he asked, Lu Yongchang nodded, as if it was a matter of course. Of course I completed it alone. Don't you think there is someone in the Aerospace Research Institute who can help me with this? Kong Xingbang, it's broken. Let him pretend. Apart from anything else, based on this detailed plan, Kong Xingbang believes that Lu Yongchang's attainments in mechanical engineering are enough to crush most of the professors present, and this, in Lu Yongchang's mouth, is actually the 3 words not good at. Academician Kong, do you have any research on lunar mining? Just when Kong Xingbang was sighing that the Yangtze River's waves behind pushed the waves in front, and the waves in front died on the beach, LV Yongchang's voice interrupted his thoughts. Kong Xingbang pondered for a moment and slowly said, lunar mining. The first thing to solve is the material problem. In the ultra-vacuum and extremely low temperature environment on the lunar surface, the seals and lubricants are easy to deteriorate. In addition, the equipment will also have corresponding problems in fatigue, ductility, and surface friction. The bombardment of fine meteoroids, the influence of lunar dust. These are all factors that must be taken into account. In addition, since the gravity of the moon is only 1/6 of that of the Earth, the stability of mining equipment is also a big problem. LV. Yongchang looked at Kang Xingbang, who was talking in front of him, and his eyes gradually brightened. Academician. Kang, how about you take charge of this project? Kang Xingbang. After a pleasant discussion, Kang Xingbang took over the stall with a joyful face. Okay, the beating of the Moon Palace project is over. LV. Yongchang, who dropped a bag, nodded with satisfaction, and looked towards a corner of the auditorium. Next is the second project, the Biosphere 2 project. Several inconspicuous biology professors looked at each other, and a gleam of light burst out of their eyes. When the professors of mining and mechanical engineering in the auditorium left, several biology professors ran quickly to LV Yongchang. Professor Lu, are you sure you want to start the Biosphere 2 project? The Biosphere 2 project you are talking about, is it the project in the United States? Faced with one question after another, LV Yongchang hurriedly took out several plans from a pile of documents in front of him, and placed them in front of several biology professors. While several professors were studying the plans, LV Yongchang sat in a chair, and closed his eyes slightly as his thoughts moved. A trace of fluorescence slowly emerged from the depths of his mind, quickly dragging his consciousness into the fluorescent green world. Several white spots have already lit up on the originally dim technology tree. Nuclear energy control, fusion reactor miniaturization technology, electric propulsion system, preliminary mastery of Hall thrusters. These originally dim cursors have now lit up with white fluorescence. LV Yongchang's eyeballs moved slightly, and his sight looked to the side. Next to the Hall thruster technology, a dim white line suddenly appeared, connecting the dim cursors one by one. Nuclear energy control, helium tree fusion, biosphere, artificial ecosystem technology, hibernation technology, space elevator technology, spaceport technology. Until the end of the line of sight, a cursor that was extremely dim appeared in front of LV Yongchang. Starship manufacturing. LV Yongchang's thoughts moved again, and he exited the system in his mind. He sighed slightly. According to the technology division on the technology tree, humans are still extremely far away from manufacturing starships. Based on his exploration during this period, he also thoroughly understood the role of this system in his mind. The first and most important point is to guide the most correct scientific research direction. Secondly, he can judge how well he has mastered the technology by observing the brightness of the cursor. Other than that, everything else depends on his own efforts. Chapter 83. Don 039. T worry, there is enough funding. Based on the brightness of the cursor in the system, he could clearly see his current mastery of these front-end technologies. If the brightness of the vernier is divided into a grade, then the brightness of the vernier, which symbolizes helium fusion, has reached 90% of the normal brightness. This is also in line with Lu Yongchang's situation at this time. The biggest obstacle why helium fusion has not been brought online is the problem of raw materials. As long as the helium secondary raw materials are solved, helium secondary fusion can enter the application stage at any time. Putting aside helium fusion technology, the second brightest technology is biosphere technology. Almost 50% brightness. This is also normal. After all, the Biosphere 2 project was not the first idea proposed by Lu Yongchang. It was originally a miniature artificial ecological circulation system established in the United States. As for Biosphere 1, it is naturally the Earth on which humans live. The original intention of the project was to prove the feasibility of a closed ecosystem to support and sustain human life in outer space. To put it simply, it is where the humans can recreate a stable closed ecosystem outside the Earth. This technology is of great significance to interstellar exploration. Whether it is a starship traveling between stars or an alien colony, Artificial ecosystem technology is an essential front-end technology point. The Biosphere 2 project in the United States covers an area of 13,000 square meters and is about 8 stories high. The main body of the building is a glass building with a sealed steel frame structure point. In order to completely simulate the Earth's environment, Biosphere 2 simulates most of the Earth's environments, including deserts, swamps, thorn bushes, rainforests, savannas, and even oceans. In addition, in order to simulate the Earth's ecological environment more realistically, a total of about 4,000 species have been introduced into the circle, including about 3,000 species of animals and plants, and about 1,000 species of microorganisms. In order to ensure that Biosphere 2 is completely isolated from the outside world, the United States even poured 2 meters of concrete under the entire building decades ago. In addition, all doors and windows of Biosphere 2 in the United States have been strictly sealed. These measures make Biosphere 2 very airtight, basically equivalent to the second world point. After the project was completed, the United States sent several scientists to conduct scientific research for several years according to the original design of American scientists. After Biosphere 2 starts operating, it will become a separate entity. Except for the energy source coming from the sun, everything else will achieve a perfect self-circulation point. Oxygen and carbon dioxide will form a perfect cycle under the photosynthesis of plants, and the food for scientists will be produced by crops inside Biosphere 2. Everything sounds so beautiful, like a paradise point, but unfortunately, all this was the fantasy of American scientists at the time. After Biosphere 2 was launched, the first problem that arose was the internal oxygen concentration point. The large number of microorganisms living in the soil causes the oxygen content to decrease at a rate of 0.5% per month. As for the carbon dioxide produced after a large amount of oxygen is consumed, most of it is absorbed by the concrete underground. This directly led to the collapse of the entire circulation system. Changes in oxygen concentration have even led to uncontrollable changes in the ecosystem. Pollinating insects are extinct, and some cockroaches are rampant, and tropical rainforest plants are growing rapidly. Even the few scientific researchers who entered it quickly became extremely thin. The final result is, of course, that outside workers pump pure oxygen into it. The moment pure oxygen was pumped into Biosphere 2, the entire plan failed. Finally, mankind's first man-made ecosphere project has become a tourist attraction that anyone can enter with just a ticket. Thinking of this, Yongchang couldn't help but sigh deeply in his heart, and there was a somewhat complicated look in his eyes. As a scientist, he deeply regretted this situation. Professor Lu? Professor Lu, a soft call from the side interrupted Yongchang's thoughts. Yongchang opened his eyes and looked in the direction of the sound. Several biology professors were looking at him expectantly. Professor Lu, we have finished reading the plan. Lu. Yongchang chuckled. A few of them should be professors specializing in artificial ecosystems. How about it? Is there anything you want to add to this plan? The leading professor looked slightly serious. After pondering for a moment, he whispered, if I guess correctly, Professor Lu, you should have learned from the data in the United States, right? Hearing this, Yongchang couldn't help but feel happy. He waved his hand casually and said, hey, why do you say it sounds so good? You can't learn from it. I just changed a few obvious issues. If you just said you copied it, I would accept it. What? Is there any big problem with the project? With the ready-made template here, is it possible that he still wants to be a saint and spend a lot of money to research one himself? Isn't this pure and simple and the brain has been kicked by a donkey? The big deal, when it succeeds, just give the United States a verbal thank you. The eyes of the leading professor were full of astonishment. He didn't expect Yongchang to admit this so freely. He smiled bitterly and shook his head. There is no big problem with the project. After all, the scientific research capabilities of the United States are there. It's just some small details that need to be improved. We still need to work harder on the selection of biological species. LV. Yongchang nodded gently. Can you complete this project? The leading professor's breath suddenly choked, and he looked at LV Yongchang in disbelief. LV, Professor Lu, he Couldn't believe that such a good job could fall on his head. This is a complete big project. After the failure of the Biosphere 2 project in the United States, ecosystem research has gradually been neglected by the academic community. Therefore, these professors can't get much funding on weekdays and are basically in a situation of generating electricity for love. Big, how much funding? He asked in a low voice with excitement in his eyes and a tremor in his voice. LV Yongchang frowned slightly. Funding. This is a problem. After all, he had never considered this thing before. The chairman of the senator and others have never restricted him in terms of funding. In any case, there will be enough funding. LV Yongchang held it in for a long time and said with a grumble, "Don't worry about this. If it's not enough, I will go to the chairman of the council to ask for it for you." The next moment, the eyes of the professors in front of him lit up. "Professor Liu, please believe me," the leading professor said with a green light in his eyes and a short breath. Since he chose this extremely unpopular research direction, he has never heard such a generous promise. Chapter 84 Target, Moon, 2 in 1, 1/2. Ahem. Liu Yongchang looked at the professor in front of him with strange eyes, coughed twice and said, "The project site is located in the Cataclysm desert. Once the project starts, you will need to spend several years in the artificial ecosystem. Have you thought about this clearly?" As soon as he finished speaking, several professors in front of him patted their chests and said, "Don't worry, Professor Liu, we had already thought about this when we came here. As long as we can conduct research on the artificial ecosystem project, we can live in it for a lifetime." That's right. After so many years, we are finally coming out. Listening to the sentiments expressed by the professors in front of him, Liu Yongchang had a wry smile on his face. As the meeting concluded successfully, Zhiguo News immediately reported this event that would go down in history. According to our news, this evening, the scientific research discussion held at Sandaokao University officially ended. During the meeting, Director Liu had several hours of discussions with academicians and professors on Zhiguo's future scientific research direction. During the meeting, Director Liu announced that Xia State will launch the Moon Palace project today. At the same time, Xia State will restart the Biosphere 2 project in the Cataclysm desert. The moment Zhiguo's news was reported, the melon-eating people wearing scarves also fell into madness. Holy shit. Today isn't April Fool's Day, is it? So, the Moon Palace project that Professor Liu mentioned before, is it serious? Upstairs, judging from the current situation, not to mention the Moon Palace plan, I guess the Nanshanman plan is also serious. Zuo, this is no longer a problem with the Strategic Deception Bureau. This damn thing is simply a strategic intimidation bureau. Stop talking. I'm going to eat 2 Zizilang jelly. I'm going to be an astronaut too. Ha 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 ha. Damn, are you going to laugh me to death upstairs? To solve the psychological shadow of the United States at this moment. 23,333. The psychological shadow of the United States is probably difficult to calculate. But at least, Albert's psychological shadow at this time is indeed quite big. WTF. Bang. Bang bang. A sound of banging on the table came from the president's office. William Blair. Albert's face turned red, and the blonde hair on his head swayed up and down as he slapped the table, making it very elegant. Holy shit. Aren't you saying that these 3 plans of Zhiguo are all deceiving people? Albert stretched out his slightly fat fingers and pointed tremblingly at a document in front of him. Tell me, what is going on? Why did Zhiguo launch the Moon Palace project? Facing the president's angry roar, William Blair and Anthony looked at each other and said with a wry smile, "Your Excellency, we didn't expect Zhiguo's plans to be serious. However, according to NASA's predictions, it will take at least 5 to 10 years for Zhiguo to initially realize the Moon Palace project." Hearing this, Albert's expression relaxed a little. But after the previous lessons, he became a lot more cautious. He looked at Moulton on the side with a suspicious look on his face. "Director Moulton, is this true?" Moulton spread his hands and shrugged. "I don't know. That's what those scientists concluded." Moulton also learned the lesson and threw the blame directly on the heads of his scientists. Albert took a deep breath. "When can the Pathfinder project start?" "What? I meanies, when can those 3 rockets go to heaven? Hearing this, Moulton's eyes became increasingly bitter. Your Excellency, the biggest problem right now is not the hardware. What's the meaning? Moulton sighed deeply. As of now, the Saturn VI launch vehicle and Mars landing module are ready, but there is something wrong with our astronauts. WTF? What problem can the astronauts have? Albert gestured exaggeratedly. Are they still going home to say goodbye to their parents? Sir, I'm afraid it's even worse. Moulton was silent for a while and said softly, currently, no astronauts within NASA are willing to participate in this project. They think going to Mars right now is just asking for death. Albert's face froze. Can't we force them to participate in the project? Moulton shrugged and looked at Albert with an expression that looked like a fool. What do you think? FXXK. Albert cursed through gritted teeth. They are all a bunch of cowards. Trash. Why does NASA raise such a batch of garbage? Moulton, feeling offended, he pondered for a moment and shrugged. How about you go up and try? Albert's curse stopped for a moment. Ahem. Albert coughed hard. Isn't there any other way? Of course, we can ask for volunteers from the private sector. Albert looked at Moulton in front of him speechlessly. Is this a method thought up by humans? When will NASA astronauts also be able to find volunteers? Early morning. In an unknown slum in Walton, USA. Andrew was woken up by the blaring alarm clock. Looking at the still dim sky outside the window, Andrew sighed deeply. He needed to go to the construction site next door to work. As a black man, Andrew has been treated unfairly since he was a child. It is precisely because of his skin color that, even though he is more hardworking than most Americans, he can only live in this dirty and messy slum. The only comforting thing is that God will not be prejudiced against him because of his skin color at this time. Andrew already has a considerate wife and a quirky daughter. Therefore, Andrew does not complain too much about his living conditions. At least, as long as he works hard, he can still make a living. According to the current salary, as long as he works for another 20 or 30 years, maybe he can change a better place for his family. Andrew, our daughter, will be of school age next year. At breakfast, his wife's words pulled him out of his fantasy. Andrew's face turned pale instantly. How could he forget this question? His daughter is already of school age. Going to school in the United States is not an easy thing. At least, for Andrew, it is very difficult. I will solve it. Andrew slightly opened his pale lips and said bitterly. It seems that he has to find a part-time job. He turned on the old TV set beside him with a heavy heart. Here is an urgent news. The US authorities announced that they will launch a Mars landing project within a month, codenamed Pathfinder. The project aims to create a second habitable home for all mankind. At that time, NASA will launch 3 Saturn VI heavy lift rockets to transport 3 astronauts and a Mars landing capsule to Mars. The 3 astronauts will conduct 3 months of survival research on Mars. At present, due to unexpected circumstances, NASA is short of astronauts. Now, NASA authorities are looking for volunteers across the country who are willing to go to Mars and open up new territories for the United States. The project is highly dangerous. NASA will give each selected volunteer a reward of $500,000. At the same time, the children of volunteers will have priority admission to US public schools, and tuition is free. It doesn't matter what the TV says behind the scenes. Andrew looked at the TV in front of him, and his breathing became increasingly rapid. Isn't this a project tailored for him? Priority admission, free tuition, $500,000 reward. He swallowed slightly and turned to look at his wife beside him. Amy, I want to participate in this project. Amy's face suddenly changed and she lowered her voice and said, Andrew, are you crazy? This thing is unreliable at first glance. Launch a rocket to Mars within a month. When did the United States have such powerful technology? Andrew bit his back teeth, and a trace of cruelty flashed in his eyes. Amy, this is news released by NASA, and the bonus will definitely not be less. Even if I fail, you and the child can. Amy wanted to say something, but was stopped by Andrew. He looked carefully at the registration address on TV, then took out his mobile phone and made a call. Boss, I want to take a leave today. The Noisy sound of the machine running came from the other end of the phone point. A rough voice followed. What? Take a leave? Damn, Andrew, there is no one else to work for you today. Andrew did not speak. You can take a leave, but I will deduct 3 days salary from you. Before Andrew could speak, the call was hung up. Point looking at the phone in his hand. Andrew's eyes became more determined. Point he had had enough of this kind of life. Xiago. Point the third day after the meeting. Point 7:30 p.m. Point the lights in the Xiago National Space Research Institute were bright, and every researcher's face was full of tension. Even the air in the institute seemed particularly dull. Point outside the institute, the all-black Zhuan number 1 quietly parked on the Takiaf runway. Point the flashing signal lights on the runway seemed to foreshadow the big things that were going to happen tonight. Point inside Zhuan number 1. Point the 3 pilots sat in their seats with solemn expressions. Are you ready, Bay? Yixin looked straight ahead at the front of the plane and whispered softly, we are about to become the first Xia people to land on the moon. Hearing Bei Yixin's words, Hong Fan exhaled deeply and then reached out and rubbed his stiff face hard. Point seeing this scene, Xia Wanai's mouth twitched slightly, revealing a slightly stiff smile. What? Can't you bear the pressure? Hong Fan rolled his eyes unhappily, took a few deep breaths and said softly, I just didn't react. Who would have thought that Professor Lu would assign us a mission to the moon the next day after the meeting, without giving us any time to prepare? Hearing Hong Fan's complaints, Bei Yixian smiled bitterly. Point not to mention Hong Fan, even he didn't expect it. Point although he knew that Zhuan number 1 would land on the moon sooner or later, he never thought that this day would come so soon. TSK. There was a burst of electric current in the radio. Point the next moment, a clear voice came. Zhuan number 1, please reply. Bei Yixin's expression moved slightly, and he reached out and pressed the radio communication button. Zhuan number 1 received. Please speak. LV. Yongchang's voice came quickly. Zhuan number 1, please pay attention. There are still 15 minutes before Takiaf. Received. Bei Yixin responded while reaching out to press several buttons on the console in front of him. Point a low humming sound came from the soles of his feet. Point on the dashboard, the fluctuating values in the neutron dose detector showed that the fusion reactor had started working. Everyone, relax a little. LV Yongchang chuckled. It's just a trip to the moon. A bitter smile flashed in Bei Yixin's eyes. It's just a trip to the moon. It's easy to say, Professor Lu, can I ask you a question? Xia Wanai's voice sounded on the radio. Well, you say. As Takiaf approached, LV Yongchang's attitude softened a lot, trying to avoid bringing too much psychological pressure to the pilot. Point hearing LV Yongchang's steady voice, Xia Wanai bit her lip lightly and whispered, Professor LV, can I ask, is the success rate of this moon landing high? Wanai. Bei Yixin's face changed slightly, and he whispered, what are you talking about? It's this question asked before Takiaf. After turning his head and glaring at Xia Wanai on his right, he quickly apologized to LV Yongchang. Professor LV, I'm sorry, Xia Wanai is under a lot of pressure. What she just said. Before he finished speaking, LV Yongchang interrupted Bei Yixin. It's okay, I understand. After all, this is the first manned moon landing in Xia country, and it's normal to be nervous. After a moment of silence, LV Yongchang's voice sounded again. Wanai, aerospace has never had a 100% success rate. I believe you know this better than me. The moment she heard this, Xia Wanai's eyelashes trembled slightly. Point that's right. Point even Xia country has suffered a lot in the development of the aerospace industry. Although I can't accurately say what the success rate is, I can tell you one thing responsibly. Zhuan number 1 and this moon landing plan have been repeatedly verified by all of us. At least, in theory, you won't encounter any danger. LV Yongchang's steady and powerful voice was transmitted to the ears of the 3 pilots through the headphones, bringing some peace to their slightly restless hearts. Bei Yixin glanced at the time on the console and the values on various dashboards, and took a deep breath. Report. Zhuan number 1 is in normal condition and can take off at any time. The moment he heard this, Yongchang's expression suddenly became serious. A powerful aura naturally emanated from him. Approved. To take off. 30-second. Countdown begins. 3, 2, 1, take off. I wish you all a safe journey. With Yongchang's order, a faint blue flame instantly appeared at the tail of Xuannu number 1. After a short run up, Xuannu number 1 drew a perfect arc in the night sky. Target, the moon. Chapter 85 IT-039, S right above our heads. USA, NASA headquarters. A researcher wearing gold-rimmed glasses yawned and pushed open the office door, slowly walking to the coffee machine point. While waiting for coffee, he turned his head and looked at the clock beside him. 8:30 in the morning. No wonder the office was empty. A bit of annoyance flashed in the researcher's eyes. If it weren't for the damn alarm clock being wrong, he wouldn't have come to the office so early. Beep, beep, beep. Just as the researcher was secretly angry, a piercing alarm sounded in the computer beside him. He was stunned for a moment, quickly reached out to turn off the coffee machine, and quickly walked towards the computer that sounded the alarm point. When he saw the bright red alarm jumping on the computer screen, his pupils shrank suddenly. Jesus, what is you are going to do again? He didn't have time to think, turned around and grabbed the phone beside him, and dialed a number. Quick. Transfer me to Director Morton. A few minutes later, Morton's slightly confused voice came from the microphone. Obviously, Morton had not gotten up yet. Hello. Who? The researcher looked at the increasingly bright alarm. His face became more and more anxious. Director Morton, something happened. Satellite detected that Xuannu number 1 took off again. What? The moment he heard this, Morton's sleepiness instantly dissipated completely. He grabbed the phone with one hand and grabbed the clothes beside the bed with the other hand. Damn, where is it now? The researcher swallowed slightly, his pupils trembling slightly. Above our heads, Morton's breathing suddenly choked, and his pupils instantly shrank to the size of a needle tip. Lawrence is an astronomy enthusiast. In order to better observe the starry sky, he specially transformed the roof of his villa into an astronomical dome. At 8:30 in the morning, Lawrence was eating breakfast while adjusting the astronomical telescope he bought at a high price. Suddenly, a dark shadow flashed across his computer screen. Lawrence was stunned. Could it be that he had just photographed a UFO? A guess flashed through his mind. As we all know, the United States is a common place for UFOs. A trace of excitement slowly emerged in his eyes. He put down the bread in his hand and quickly operated the astronomical telescope next to him. Whether it was a UFO or not, as long as he could take a full picture of the flying object, he would make a fortune. At least, he could be a little famous in the local newspaper. As he operated on the computer, the astronomical telescope next to him slowly moved. WTF. As the picture gradually became clear, Lawrence stared blankly at the unidentified object on the computer screen. A dark black, streamlined plane was quietly flying in the blue sky. At the tail of the plane, there was a dark blue tail flame that was nearly half the length of the fuselage. The camera slowly zoomed in, and Lawrence even saw the bright red flag printed on the side of the plane. Xuannu number 1, Lawrence muttered to himself, and quickly took a high-definition photo of Xuannu number 1. Afterwards, he moved his finger slightly, opened his Twitter account, and uploaded the photo. Little did he know that his move completely caused chaos in the United States. The White House. Albert sat in the office, frowning at the documents in front of him, and occasionally taking a sip of Coca-Cola beside him. Suddenly, a noisy shout came from outside the window. Albert frowned and whispered to the beautiful secretary next to him, "What's going on? Why is it so noisy outside?" Hearing Albert's words, the secretary hurriedly twisted her body to the window, opened the curtains and looked out. Jesus. The moment she saw the scene outside the window, the beautiful secretary reached out and gently covered her red lips, muttering to herself, "Mr. President, I think you may need to come and see it in person." Albert's brows frowned even deeper. He sighed deeply, put down the documents in his hand, stood up from the chair with difficulty, and walked to the window. Outside the White House, as far as the eye could see, there were Americans holding banners. WTF. Albert pulled down the curtain suddenly and looked at the crowd through the gap with a gloomy face. What happened? Knock. Knock knock. A rapid knock on the door came. Mr. President, something happened. Morton's voice came from outside the door. Albert's face became more and more ugly. Come in. The office door slammed open, and Morton outside the door looked pale, with beads of sweat on his forehead. Mr. President, Zai's Zuand number 1 is now above our heads. 10 minutes later, the president's office was transformed into a temporary combat command center on the big screen. The graceful flying posture of Zuand number 1 was clearly visible. FXXK. Albert slammed the table angrily and shouted in a low voice, "Where is our army? Why not send fighter jets to drive it out?" Anthony shrugged lightly. "Mr. President, it is now in geosynchronous orbit, and our fighter jets can't fly that high. At that altitude, the only objects we can control are satellites." Albert's face choked. "If you want to mobilize the satellite to collide with this plane, I advise you not to do it." Anthony sighed slightly. "Not to mention whether the satellite can catch up with it. If we piss it off, it can absolutely take down all our satellites." Albert leaned heavily on the back of the presidential chair. An unprecedented feeling of powerlessness arose in his heart. This is the first time he has experienced such a feeling since he became the president of the United States. For the first time, he experienced the despair brought about by the technological gap, just like the Indians back then. Albert took out his phone with a gloomy expression and opened Twitter with trembling fat fingers, seeing the words that were all cursing him. The corners of Albert's mouth twitched twice. "Call Mizagiuo's national hotline. Mr. Congressman, I would like to ask, why is your country's number 1 Zuanv in the United States?" Albert's voice reached Congressman Lee's ears thousands of miles away through the phone line. A smile flashed in Congressman Lee's eyes, and he asked in a very surprised tone, "Mr. Albert, you just said that Zuanv number 1 is in your country. When did the 36,000 kilometer geostationary orbit become part of your country's national border?" Albert's face turned red instantly. Mr. Speaker, this joke is not funny. I strongly condemn this behavior of your country. The smile in Congressman Lee's eyes grew stronger. "Mr. Albert, don't worry. Zuanv 1 is just performing a mission. You can treat it as a satellite." Albert almost spat out a mouthful of blood. "Satellite? You can say this. Is there such a satellite?" But soon, his eyes moved slightly, and he caught the key point of the sentence. "Mission? What mission?" A few seconds later, Congressman Lee's calm voice came from the microphone. "Manned landing on the moon. Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding." Chapter 86. Who is the first to leave the cabin? Zaijiuo News Channel. The latest news from our station is that at 6 o'clock this evening, Zuanv 1 took off from the National Aerospace Research Institute. This time Zuanv 1 will go to the moon to conduct a series of scientific research experiments. At that time, the moon landing process will be broadcast live on all platforms. Naturally, the 3 astronauts in Zuanv 1 had no idea how much panic they had caused to the United States. At this time, they were in a state of boredom. Since the speed of Zuanv 1 reached 11.2 km/s, they embarked on the journey to the moon. At this time, the moon is at apogee, almost 400,000 kilometers away from the Earth. In other words, even if Zuanv 1 maintains a speed of 11.2 km/s, it will take them 9.92 hours to reach the moon. Not to mention they need to slow down in advance. 9 hours flew by. The side windows of Zuanv No. 1 were completely dark. Because of the lack of the necessary reference system, and the fact that Zuanv 1 has been traveling at a constant speed. If it weren't for the increasing area occupied by the moon in the porthole directly in front, the 3 astronauts would even have the illusion of standing still. Hang Fan gently picked up the special water cup on the side, took a sip of the drink through the straw, and shouted loudly, "It's great. This is what aerospace is. I don't even know how we tolerated such a small landing bay before. It's a pity that Professor Liu didn't come this time. Otherwise, the atmosphere in our cabin would have been much livelier." As Soon as Han Fan finished speaking, Bai Yixuan's body suddenly stiffened. He turned his head and glared at Han Fan. What nonsense are you talking about? If Professor Lu can still sneak up on number 1 Zuan this time, we probably won't be able to afford it. With that said, Bai Yixuan turned his head and glanced behind him. When he saw the empty passenger seat behind him, he breathed a sigh of relief. Drop. Attention. There are still 1,000 kilometers away from the scheduled deceleration point. After seeing the prompt message popping up on the console screen, Bai Yixuan's expression was shocked. Everyone, we are almost there. Brace yourself. The most dangerous moment is next. With that said, Bai Yixuan pressed the radio button. Zuan 1 calls the ground command center. We have arrived at the scheduled deceleration point. Please give instructions. After 9 hours of navigation, Zuan 1 has arrived at a distance of 360,000 kilometers from the Earth point. Even if the radio signal travels at the speed of light, there is a delay of up to 2.4 seconds. A few seconds later, a sound mixed with the sound of strong electric current sounded in the earphones. Ground command center received it. Everything goes according to plan. After receiving the order, Bai Yixuan's expression moved slightly. He reached out and pushed a few buttons on the console and said softly, everyone, check your seatbelts. Zuan number 1 is about to slow down. As the last button was pressed, Zuan 1's whole thruster gradually turned off. At the same time, the engine nozzle located on its belly slowly changed direction. Then, a faint blue flame shot out in the direction of Zuan number 1. Looking at the silver-white planet that occupied the entire porthole, Bai Yixuan took a deep breath. Next is the most dangerous moment in the whole process. Call the ground command center. Call the ground command center. This is Zuan number 1. We have arrived in lunar synchronous orbit. Please land. Repeat. Request landing. After a few seconds of delay, Lu Yongchang's voice came over the radio. Approved. For landing. Everything goes as planned. Receive. Bai Yixuan responded softly. Now prepare to release the satellite. The next moment, a cabin in the abdomen of Zuan 1 quietly opened. 12 satellites lined up in a long line and flew out slowly. There is no atmosphere on the surface of the moon. Therefore, communication methods that rely on electromagnetic wave conduction on the moon's surface are greatly limited. For example, people on the far side of the moon cannot communicate via radio with people on the Earth and the front side of the moon without a relay satellite. After all, electromagnetic waves cannot penetrate the moon, which has a diameter of 3,476 kilometers. This is very detrimental to the moon palace plan that will be implemented soon. Therefore, the first task of Zuan 1 this time is to establish an all-round communication network around the moon with solar panels and isotope batteries. These 12 multifunctional satellites responsible for communication, mapping and positioning are enough to operate until the destruction of the Earth. 15 years. Moon. The quiet surface of the moon is full of craters. The fine moon dust glows silvery white under the sunlight. There was no sign of life. The entire planet is filled with an aura of death. Suddenly, a shadow appeared on the silvery white moon surface. The next moment, a black plane landed slowly. A faint blue flame perpendicular to the lunar ground appeared from several nozzles on the belly of the aircraft. The moment the plane landed, countless silver white moon dust flew into the air and then slowly landed under the weak gravity of the moon. Zaya 1 stared at the fantastic scenery outside through the porthole with blurred eyes. So, we should be the first group of Zaya people to land on the moon, right? Han Fan nodded. Of course. Zaya 1 murmured to herself. So, who will go down first? As soon as the voice fell, the atmosphere inside Zuan number 1 suddenly became tense. Who will go down first? This is a very serious question. After all, only champions will be remembered by people. For example, the world's highest peak, Mount Everest. Of course, if you say you know that the second highest peak is Mount Komalangma, that's no use. How about we play rock paper scissors? Second, agree. 1 minute later, no, 3 wins out of 5. Han Fan shouted with a distorted face. I don't believe I can't win at all. Another minute. 4 wins out of 7. Another minute. How about best of 9? Bai Yixin glanced at Hang Fan beside him unhappily and said with a straight face, since the result of the rock paper scissors game is out, the order is determined. The first one is Wan Yi, the second one is me, and the third one is Hang Fan. Any questions? Hang Fan looked at Xia Wan Yi beside him with a sour face. So, Wan Yi, aren't you the first human woman to land on the moon? Xia Wan Yi's eyes suddenly lit up. If she hadn't said that, she would have really forgotten it. TSK. TSK. Zuanv number 1. Can Zuanv number 1 hear it? The slightly anxious voice of LV Yongchang came from the radio in the helmet. How are you? Haven't landed yet, because of the help of 12 communication satellites. LV Yongchang's voice was obviously much clearer at this time. Bei Yixuan's face froze, and after connecting the radio, he glared at the two people around him with a warning. Zuanv number 1 received. We have landed successfully. Chapter 87. The flagpole left by the United States. Huh, that's good. Lu Yongchang stood on the command podium and breathed a sigh of relief. Your report time is 2 minutes later than expected. What's going on? The corners of Bei Yixuan's eyes twitched slightly. What's going on? How should he answer this? Delayed because of guessing. Ahem. Bei Yixuan coughed slightly, his eyes full of embarrassment. Professor Lu, we were just discussing who should get off the plane first. Lu Yongchang, how is your physical condition? Lu Yongchang changed the topic and did not ask for the details of the discussion. Bei Yixuan breathed a sigh of relief, and his tone became more serious for a moment. Report. The 3 astronauts are in good condition. They can leave the cabin at any time to carry out the moon landing mission. Okay. Go as planned. Bei Yixuan took a deep breath and took the lead in unbuckling his seatbelt. Everyone, it's time for us to get ready to leave the cabin. Half an hour later, the 3 astronauts put on their spacesuits and slowly entered the pressurized cabin at the bottom of the Zuanv 1 cabin. As Bei Yixuan pressed the switch, a clear beep sounded in the helmets of the 3 people. Pressure balancing. The pressure is balanced. As the beep sounded, the pressurized cabin now became a vacuum. Bei Yixuan winked at Xia Wan Yi, who was standing aside, and said softly, Wan Yi, it's your turn. Upon hearing the captain's order, Xia Wan Yi's eyes flashed with excitement. The first Xia man to land on the moon, the first human woman to land on the moon. These 2 names were like stimulants stimulating her nerves all the time. She swallowed slightly and stuck out her tongue to lick her slightly dry lips. Then she took a step forward and held her hands on the ring-shaped handle of the hatch that connected the pressure chamber to the outside world. She exerted some force with her hands, and the hatch moved. As the hatch slowly opened, a silver white ramp was slowly lowered. At the same time, a green work indicator light came on a camera placed on the gangway. The camera lens moved slowly, faithfully recording Xia Wan Yi's every move. Each frame of picture is compiled and turned into an electromagnetic wave signal, which is transmitted to the Earth 400,000 kilometers away at the speed of light. Ground command center looking at the slightly blurry transmission image on the screen. Every scientific researcher's heart was lifted high. Lu Yongchang swallowed slightly and clenched his fists with both hands. He must not fail. Xia Wan Yi lived up to everyone's expectations. A few minutes later, her feet stepped firmly on the gravel and dusty moon surface, leaving a deep footprint on it. The moment she held a bright red flag in her hand and danced towards the camera, the entire command center, no, the entire Xia kingdom was boiling. It worked. We succeeded. KO. Liang K on the side stretched out his hand and patted Lu Yongchang hard on the back. Ha ha ha. Boy, good job. Now, we have finally caught up with the United States. A faint smile appeared on the corner of Lu Yongchang's mouth, and he said to himself, catch up. Just catching up isn't enough. The Xiago Newsbib account immediately posted the already edited article. Warm congratulations to Xiago 1 for its successful moon landing. As all 3 astronauts stepped onto the lunar surface, the cameras stopped working. The following content is not suitable for live broadcast. What to do about this red flag? Xia Wan Yi waved the red flag in her hand and asked softly through the radio. Upon hearing Xia Wan Yi's question, Hang Fan subconsciously turned his head and glanced around. Desolation. The ground is littered with gravel and fine dust. Suddenly, a strange scenery attracted his attention. What's that pole? As Hang Fan spoke, he stretched out his hand and pointed into the distance. Bei Yixuan glanced at it, frowned, and whispered, "It should be someone from the United States, right? I remember this was the landing site of Apollo 11. After so many years, the flag has probably turned into ashes due to the destruction of cosmic rays and solar wind." Hang Fan suddenly realized, "That's it. Then our flag." Bei Yixuan chuckled, "Don't worry, Professor Lu has already considered this issue. As long as our red flag is not hit by a meteorite, it can be preserved for at least a few hundred years." As soon as he finished speaking, he shrugged and added again, "Of course, I'm talking about the situation when the sun does not change. As for where to place our flag," Bei Yixuan showed a bit of a smirk in his eyes, "how about we put it next to the flagpole of the United States, so as to make a comparison?" Hang Fan was stunned and said angrily, "Why not just pull out the flagpole of the United States? Anyway, the flagpole has been almost eroded by the solar wind." As he spoke, Hang Fan walked quickly towards the flagpole left by the United States. "No." Bei Yixuan's tone suddenly became more serious. He reached out and grabbed Hang Fan's arm and said in a deep voice, "No matter what, this is a symbolic sign in the development of human civilization. We must deal with it. It has basic respect." Hang Fan was slightly startled. He had never seen Bei Yixuan so serious before. The next moment, Bei Yixuan shrugged. "This is what Professor Lu told me." He had anticipated this scene before taking off. "I think it makes sense. Let's plant our flag next to it." Hang Fan, looking at the bright red flag in front of him, Bei Yixuan was a little absent-minded. "Sooner or later, we will plant this red flag all over the solar system. The pattern is small." Hang Fan laughed and joked, "What's the solar system? According to Professor Lu's heavenly plan, our red flag can at least fill the Milky Way." The scientific researchers in the ground command center also sat back in their seats after a brief celebration. Next, it is the most important part of the entire moon landing plan. Bei Yixuan, you are responsible for collecting lunar soil and lunar rock samples. Hang Fan, you drive the lunar rover to the target location to take samples. Zia Wanai, you go with Hang Fan to prevent any accidents. LV Yongchang issued orders with a serious look. Hearing the voice coming from the headset, the three astronauts' expressions suddenly became serious. Next, all the work they have to do is to prepare for the next lunar palace plan. In addition to setting up a perfect communication environment for the moon, they need to carry out simple sampling work and conduct a secondary confirmation of the resource richness of the selected area. Chapter 88 Strange Black Circle. After watching the two people get on the lunar rover and leave, Bei Yixuan turned around and fixed his body with a hook lock. Then, he raised the special shovel in his hand and smashed it against the moon rock beside him. Because the moon's gravity is only 1/6 that of the Earth, Bei Yixuan's movement seemed a little light. But the moment the shovel collided with the moon rock, a powerful counter-shock force came along. The shovel. The counter-shock force that seems insignificant on the Earth is like a nightmare on the moon. Before Bei Yixuan could react, his body was thrown away. The hook lock used to fix Bei Yixuan's body suddenly collapsed, and his body was pulled back to the original position. Bei Yixuan subconsciously raised his hand to wipe the cold sweat on his forehead, but he touched the slightly cold mask. So dangerous. It seems that I still tried too hard. He carefully adjusted how hard he swung the shovel. After more than 10 minutes, he slowly breathed a sigh of relief and put a few pieces of broken moon rock into the storage box next to him. Just when he was about to ask Hang Fan and the others about their situation through the radio, a piercing scream came from the helmet. "This is Bei Yixuan's heart suddenly tightened. Without time to think, he directly turned on the radio call function in the spacesuit. "Wanai. What happened?" After a brief silence, Zia Wanai's frightened voice came from the helmet. We found something strange." Hearing Zia Wanai and Hang Fan's descriptions, Bei Yixuan's pupils shrank slightly, and he immediately said, "You two, don't move. I'll be right over." After interrupting the communication within the team. Baekseun gently bit his back teeth and quickly connected to the Earth's communication channel. Call. The ground command center. An abnormality was found. Repeat. An abnormality was found. 20 minutes later Baekseun panted and found Zaiwanai and Han Fan standing next to the crater. Seeing that the two of them were intact, Baekseun breathed a sigh of relief. Fine ground command center, I found them, Baekseun said with relief. They are fine. They are just standing next to a crater. A few seconds later, Yongchang's solemn voice came from his earphones. Received. What's the specific situation? Wait a minute. I'm connecting the camera. As he said this, he turned on the camera mounted above his head. Drop. A clear beep sounded inside his helmet. Seeing that the camera on the panel began to transmit signals normally, Baekseun jumped to his teammates. What's going on? Han Fan didn't speak, but pointed inside the crater. The crater is very small, not even 1 kilometer in diameter on the moon. It is a relatively small crater. In addition, the crater is relatively shallow, so sunlight can shine on its bottom without any obstruction. The moment he saw the scene inside the crater, Baekseun's pupils shrank violently. On the silver white moon surface, a black concentric circle suddenly appeared. There are 9 layers of concentric circles, and Baekseun estimates that the outermost circle is at least 20 meters in diameter. Earth, ground command center. The moment black concentric circles appeared on the screen, the entire command center fell into silence. More than 10 seconds later, Ko Lianke on the side said with a trembling voice, what is this? Compared with Ko Lianke, Yongchang's reaction was much duller. After all, he had already been mentally prepared. He took a deep breath and said softly, let the technical department analyze the image. I want to know the diameters of these concentric circles and whether their center positions are standard. This approach is also to exclude the fact that concentric circles are naturally formed. After all, the universe is full of wonders. What if it is really the pattern that the meteorite smashed out when it fell? Although the probability is very slim, those who do science must be more rigorous. The analysis results came out quickly. Professor Liu, the center positions of the 9 concentric circles are very standard. Not only that, their curvatures are very standard. A researcher held a report sheet in his hand and hurriedly ran to Yongchang and whispered. Yongchang's expression changed slightly, and he quickly reached out to take the report. Looking at the data on the report, Yongchang's face turned ugly for a moment. Old Ko, come and see. These 9 concentric circles are as if they were drawn with a compass. Ko Lianke on the side leaned over the moment he saw the data on the report sheet. Ko Lianke's expression changed slightly. It seems that this concentric circle is not a naturally formed pattern. Could it be that it was left behind by the last time the United States landed on the moon? Ko Lianke's eyes moved slightly, and he said softly, don't forget, this area is also the moon landing site of the American Apollo 11. Yongchang pondered for a moment, then slowly shook his head and said, no, it will definitely not be the traces left by Apollo 11. You see, based on the diameter of this crater and the scale of the picture, the largest concentric circle has a diameter of 20 meters. The Apollo 11 command module was conical, with a bottom diameter of 3.9 meters, and the service module was a cylinder with a diameter of 3.9 meters. The size difference between the two is really too big. Speaking of this, Yongchang paused slightly. I wonder if you feel that this black concentric circle is a bit like the jet of the Hall thruster. Ko Lianke's pupils shrank suddenly. That's not to say he hasn't noticed it yet. The Hall thruster nozzle of Zhuan number 1 is also composed of several concentric circles with regular shapes. Hall thruster. He swallowed slightly and said softly, could it be that there are other countries on Earth besides us that have mastered mature Hall thruster technology? Yongchang shook his head solemnly. No, before mastering small fusion reactor technology, Hall thruster technology is basically equivalent to chicken ribs. What's more, there shouldn't be such a large spacecraft on Earth. A Hall thruster nozzle with a diameter of 20 meters. In my opinion, this is definitely an engine that only spacecraft that crosses a star system can have. A Drop of sweat slowly slid down Liangke's forehead. The current situation is completely beyond his control. He looked at LV Yongchang with a nervous look. Professor LV, we are now. LV. Yongchang's expression was stern, and he turned his head to the researcher beside him and said, report this matter to the chairman of the parliament. Remember, be quick. Also, keep it confidential. Seeing the researcher leave, LV Yongchang's eyes gradually became tangled. Perhaps we can only know the truth of the matter if we get close to that black circle. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89, Traces Left by Hall Thrusters. LV Yongchang's words obviously startled Liangke, who was standing by. Professor Lu, you sure you want to let the 3 astronauts take such a big risk? How about let them come back and we can make a long-term plan? LV Yongchang looked at the data on the report sheet with an uncertain expression. Danger is definitely their point after all. No one knows what the black circle is. What if it is some kind of highly radioactive material? Even with the protection of spacesuits, these 3 astronauts will have to die on the moon. However, the current situation facing Xiago does not allow them to make long-term plans at all. LV Yongchang gritted his teeth. A hint of determination flashed in his eyes, and then he gently pressed the radio communication button. This is the ground command center. Please reply if you receive it. Bay. Yixen stared at the black concentric circles in the crater, and a chill rose from his back. Do you think this is a trace left by an alien civilization? Silence. There was no response in the team voice. After a long time, Han Fan's unique hoarse voice sounded in the radio channel. It should be. Maybe we are being monitored by this alien civilization now. Zah, one eye on the side, shuddered suddenly and subconsciously looked up at the sky. It was pitch black. Except for the stars, she could not see anything unusual. Just as Bayixen was about to say something, a burst of electric current came from the radio. This is the ground command center. Please reply if you receive it. Bayixen's expression suddenly became a little serious. Bayixen received it. Please speak. After a few seconds of delay, LV Yongchang's slightly tangled voice came from the radio. Captain Bay, after technical analysis, we basically confirmed that the black concentric circle pattern in front of you is a man-made object. Bay. Yixen's pupils dilated slightly, and his breathing became a little faster. Then, Professor Lu, do we need to do anything? The large amount of adrenaline secretion made his voice seem a little hoarse. LV Yongchang's sigh came from the radio. Captain Bay, we need to analyze the truth of this black circle. So I hope you can go to the black circle to check it out. Of course, this is not a mandatory requirement. After all, we don't know if it is dangerous. Once there is danger, perhaps. Speaking of this, LV Yongchang's voice suddenly paused. So, everything is based on the principle of voluntariness. Bay. Yixen's breathing became more and more rapid. He understood what LV Yongchang meant. After all, they were on the moon, 400,000 kilometers away from the Earth. Once there was an accident, their fate was basically doomed. Professor Lu. Bayixen's Adam's apple trembled twice. I'm willing to check it out. Okay. LV Yongchang's voice was full of complexity. Zaguo, I will remember you. If something really happens, I promise you in the name of NASA that your relatives will receive the best treatment. Bay. Yixen took a deep breath, turned his head to look at the 2 teammates around him, and smiled with ease. You two, stay here and help me hold the safety rope. If anything happens, just pull me back. Bay. Yixen's words were transmitted to the ears of the 2 teammates through the radio. Xiaowan's eyes instantly turned red. Captain, why don't go? Han Fan hesitated for a moment and said, Captain, I'll go with you. If anything happens, I can help you. Faced with the dissuasion of the 2 teammates, Bayixen smiled and shook his head. This is already considered a second-class contact, and the danger level is very high. As the captain, this is my duty. You two, just stay by the side. Seemingly, Aware that the atmosphere was too solemn, Baekhyun smiled and patted Han Fan on the shoulder. What? You don't want to steal my military merit, do you? I tell you kid, no way. After speaking, Baekhyun tied the safety rope on the lunar rover around his waist, turned around and walked down to the crater. The crater is very small, and the slope of the crater wall is not very large. Baekhyun took 2 steps at a time, and jumped to the bottom of the pit, and walked carefully towards the black circle in the center of the crater. Professor Lu, can you see it? In order to be on the safe side, Baekhyun stopped and asked softly. A few seconds later, Lu Yongchang's voice came. I can see it. The camera is working normally. You can continue to move forward. Baekhyun walked very slowly, and it took him half an hour to walk a few hundred meters looking at the outermost black circle less than 1 meter away from him. Baekhyun was slightly stunned. Unbelievable. What's wrong? Lu Yongchang, who was 400,000 kilometers away, asked the first time. Is this a glass-like substance? Baekhyun slowly lowered his body and reached out to touch the black circle. Han Fan, who saw this scene from a distance, couldn't help but tighten the safety rope in his hand. He was ready. If anything unusual happened, he would pull Baekhyun back directly. A group of researchers on Earth also sweated. Baekhyun's right hand gradually touched the black substance on the ground. Nothing happened. He rubbed his fingers lightly. Even with the thick space suit blocking him, he noticed that the ground near the black circle was obviously much smoother than the area next to it. Professor Lu, it's a bit like moon dust that has solidified after being melted by high temperature. Received. Lu Yongchang's solemn voice sounded. Captain Bay, please help me dig out some samples. Also, I need detailed modeling data for this crater. 2 hours later, detailed modeling data and sample photos of the crater were sent back to Zaya. Looking at the clear photos on the computer in front of him, Lu Yongchang sighed deeply. Professor Lu, the chairman of the parliament is here. KO. Liang K's reminder came from the side. Lu Yongchang quickly stood up and looked towards the door. Councillor Li walked towards him quickly and solemnly. Yongchang, what's going on? I heard that traces of extraterrestrial civilization were discovered. Facing the speaker's question, Lu Yongchang nodded slightly, with a hint of bitterness in his eyes. President, I'm afraid so. As he spoke, he turned sideways and showed the screen on the computer to Congressman Lee. According to my speculation, this concentric circle pattern is most likely a trace left by the high temperature when the Hall thruster was started. Given the size of the engine nozzle, extraterrestrial civilization is the only possibility. Councillor Lee's expression became more solemn. Besides this trace, have any traces of other extraterrestrial civilizations been found? Lu Yongchang slowly shook his head. Then, are the changes in the sun related to this extraterrestrial civilization? Chapter 90 Travel. Member Lee's question attracted everyone's attention. Every researcher present looked at LV Yongchang with trepidation. LV Yongchang pondered for a moment and slowly shook his head. The changes in the sun are most likely not caused by this civilization. Before Member Lee could breathe a sigh of relief, LV Yongchang continued in a deep voice. I suspect that the sun was tampered with by another advanced civilization. The head of the council suddenly shrank his pupils, and he subconsciously exclaimed, what? There is another one. After a moment of surprise, Member Lee regained his usual calmness, but deep in his eyes, he could still see a little trepidation and uneasiness. Yongchang, can you tell me what you based your judgment on? Hearing Councillor Lee's question, LV Yongchang slowly raised his head and explained solemnly, it's very simple. The power source of the Hall thruster is actually not very advanced. Or, in other words, in the universe civilization, the Hall thruster should be the lowest level of propulsion. The basis for my judgment, at least we have initially mastered the Hall thruster. The faces of everyone present changed slightly. It sounds unpleasant, but it does make sense. Even if humans living on their home planet can master the Hall thruster technology, then how advanced should those extraterrestrial civilizations that have the ability to navigate the star system have? Seeing the uncertain look of the counselor, LV Yongchang chuckled. You don't have to be so pessimistic. There is still good news. At least, The technology level of this extraterrestrial civilization found on the moon is not much different from ours. Member Lee was stunned for a moment, and a bitter smile appeared in his eyes. That's all I can think of, but if the sun is targeted by another advanced civilization, then wouldn't we? LV. Yongchang's expression became more and more relaxed. Member, there's no need to worry so much, although it sounds a bit harsh. In the eyes of advanced civilizations, we are just a bug. Will you pay attention to the movements of a nest of ants at your doorstep? The counselor looked at LV Yongchang in front of him with a look of astonishment, and for a moment he couldn't accept his statement. You mean, we humans are just a nest of ants? Maybe not even as good as ants. Member Lee smiled bitterly and shook his head. If that's the case, then I won't worry about it. After seeing off Counselor Lee, LV Yongchang returned to the office alone. At the moment he closed the door, he sighed deeply. Will advanced civilizations really not notice human movements? The answer is naturally no. Humans must have been noticed by a certain advanced civilization. Otherwise, LV Yongchang didn't know how to explain the change in the timing of the solar anomaly. Just like a nest of ants living quietly at the doorstep will not attract attention. But once this nest of ants begins to expand its territory and declare its power, it will inevitably attract a lot of attention. Even it will bring about a catastrophe. But what exactly is the reason that humans are remembered by more than one civilization? LV Yongchang fell into deep thought. Suddenly, his heart moved slightly, and a piece of history emerged in his mind. On August 20th and September 5th. 1977, Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 were launched from the United States. The two probes are responsible for the mission of the outer planets as early as 2012. Studies have shown that Voyager has entered interstellar space, that is, outside the solar system. The plutonium battery inside the Voyager continued to operate until 5 years ago, that is, in 2025. After the battery was exhausted, humans no longer received any information from the Voyager. In other words, from 5 years ago, whether the Voyager still existed in interstellar space has become an unknown. Inside the Voyager, there are 2 gold-plated records and a diamond phonograph needle. The records contain a lot of human information, greetings in 55 human languages and some world classics. In addition to this information, the records also contain photos of planets in the solar system, as well as the specific coordinates of humans and the Earth. Once the 2 Voyagers are intercepted, all the information of human civilization will be exposed to other civilizations. Thinking of this, Lu Yongchang's face suddenly became ugly. According to the time speculation, the accident of the Voyager probe has become a foregone conclusion. The catastrophe facing the Earth and mankind is the consequence of what the United States did in 1977, a few months ago. The moment when the glory of nuclear fusion just shone on the land of Zaya. In an artificial planet fortress that is countless light years away from the solar system. One of the jobs of Sweeper 9527 is to look through the data sent from various detectors in the Milky Way. Countless detectors send various data to the main civilization all the time, most of which are useless information. For example, supernova explosions, black hole annihilation, or celestial body collisions. These are all irrelevant information. He needs to find useful information from countless chaotic data. As for what is useful information, sir? We found a planet with exposed coordinates at the edge of the Orion arm of the Milky Way. Hearing the information reported by his subordinates, Sweeper 9527's visual organ shook slightly. Oh, Orion arm. Such a barren location can actually give birth to civilization. Sweeper 9527's tone was full of surprise. The Orion arm is not one of the 4 main spiral arms of the Milky Way, which means that the materials in it are extremely scarce. The edge of the Orion arm can even be said to be a remote place. Sweeper 9527 couldn't imagine such a barren environment. At least, he had never been to such a place. Yes. This civilization has published all its specific location and information. Hearing this, Sweeper 9527's visual organs trembled again. Here, another young civilization that has just started. So naive. He, in this case, execute the procedure. Soon, an application was handed to him. Apply for a star-eating device for cleaning. Sweeper 9527 slid the application carelessly and threw a round ball emitting black light to the Orion arm point at the moment when he threw out the Star Eater. His visual organs casually glanced at the observation instrument in front of him. Wait. They have mastered controlled nuclear fusion. Turn up the power of the Star Eater. Seeing the power of the Star Eater being turned up, Sweeper 9527's visual organs trembled again. It was a close call. He almost made a mistake. If this cleaning mission fails, his bonus this year might be cut in half. Right. While thinking, he made a mark on the observation panel in front of him. Cleaning. Success. Chapter 91 Proxima Civilization. On the third day after the discovery of the strange black circle, Zhuan-1 re-entered the Earth's atmosphere and slowly landed at the Xia National Space Research Institute. A series of rock and black circle samples excavated from the moon were sent to the institute's laboratory as soon as possible. LV Yongchang looked at the black substance on the experimental table in front of him, and a trace of amazement flashed in his eyes under the light. The black substance was slightly reflective. I have to say, this thing is pretty good looking. LV Yongchang whispered. Ko Liangke leaned over and glanced at the black substance on the experimental table and nodded gently. It's really pretty, but it's the same Hall thruster, but ours doesn't seem to achieve this effect, right? Hearing this, LV Yongchang's eyes showed some helplessness. Of course it can't be achieved. If the same effect can be achieved, it is estimated that Zhuan-1 can fly out of the solar system. Old. KO. Help me identify when this thing was formed. KO. Liang K was slightly startled. When was it formed? Why are you studying this? Shouldn't we study the composition of this black substance? LV Yongchang stared at the glass-like substance in front of him with his deep eyes and whispered, I want to build a model to reverse the whereabouts of this aircraft. The result is out. KO. Liang K's eyes were a little horrified. You may not believe it. This thing was formed 5 years ago. It's hard to calculate the specific time. There is only an approximate time. It should be around December 2025. Hearing this key time node, LV Yongchang's heart skipped a beat. 5 years ago. It was the time when the travelers left the solar system. Can't be so unlucky. 2 Voyager probes were picked up by 2 civilizations respectively. Thinking of this, LV Yongchang's face showed a bitter expression. This is really what's wrong. Seeing the bitter expression on LV Yongchang's face, Ko Liang K frowned and asked in a low voice, is there anything special about this time? LV Yongchang hesitated for a moment and told Ko Liang K his guess. Fuck, the TND solar crisis was caused by the United States. Ko Liang K's face flushed instantly. No, we must settle accounts with them. Come on, this thing is just a guess of mine. Lu Yongchang shrugged and said unhappily, besides, how do you want to settle accounts? According to the current situation, even if Xiago technology is the only one in power, we can't easily attack other countries. We only have 15 years left. We can't spend 1 or 2 years on internal fighting. Besides, no matter how rubbish they are, on the scale of the universe, we are all human civilization. KO. Liang K laughed awkwardly and scratched the back of his head. I didn't think so much. I just think that our Xiago can get itself out of it, and those other countries have nothing to do with us. LV Yongchang shook his head slowly. You can't say that. Whether from the genetic level or from the perspective of evolution, keeping them will only be more beneficial to our Xia country. As he spoke, LV Yongchang's eyes revealed a bit of depth. After apes became humans, our evolution has stagnated. To adapt to the universe, we must start evolving again. Genes of different races will only be beneficial to Xia country. If you want to go far in this dark universe, it is absolutely impossible to stand still. KO. Liang K nodded thoughtfully. It makes some sense. Of course. LV Yongchang's eyes flashed a little cold. All I said is under the situation where Xia country is the leader. If there are blind people who want to make trouble at this time, I will let him know what despair is. KO. Liang K's eyes twitched twice and he quickly changed the subject. Ahem. I've gone too far. The data is out. We can start modeling and reverse deduction. LV Yongchang came back to his senses and looked down at the data in front of him. After inputting the data into the model he created, the computer quickly gave a conclusion. Hiss, LV. Yongchang took a breath. How could this be? The simulation result pointed to the direction of Proxima Centauri. In other words, the alien civilization using Hall propulsion technology came from Proxima Centauri, which is only 4.22 light years away from the Earth! 4.22 light years. This is an extremely small distance on the scale of the universe. It's basically like a neighbor separated by a wall. A cold sweat suddenly broke out on LV Yongchang's back. Humans have spent so much time looking for alien civilizations, but they don't know that the real extraterrestrial civilization is right next door. Ko Liang-K, who was standing by, was also horrified when he saw this result. This result won't be wrong. He swallowed slightly and whispered. LV Yongchang didn't say anything, but just lowered his head and checked it quickly. After the same result appeared in the second simulation, LV Yongchang sighed deeply. It should be correct. They are right next to us. LV Yongchang's face was ugly. Now, human civilization not only faces a solar crisis, but also has to deal with the invasion of more advanced civilization. What's more terrifying is that they don't even know when this civilization will fully enter the solar system. What should we do? Faced with Ko Liang-K's question, LV Yongchang fell into a long silence. What should we do? How does he know what to do? This is simply a natural disaster plus a man-made disaster, a hellish start. Hiding in the solar system is definitely not a way to survive. To leave the solar system, Proxima Centauri, 4.22 light years away, is a necessary choice. Cross-star system navigation is not like navigation within a star system. Outside the star system, there is an endless blank zone. It can be said that in such an interstellar space, humans will not get any supplies. Therefore, the target of the first cross-star system navigation can only be the nearest Proxima Centauri. As for Alpha Centauri, 4.3 light years away from the Earth, there are no planets in its star system. For the sake of plot advancement, this is the setting. In fact, there is a high probability that there is an Earth-like planet in the habitable zone of Alpha Centauri before humans have acquired the technology to convert energy back into matter. Planets will always be an indispensable source of materials. Gaseous planets can provide hydrogen and helium, providing energy for the next interstellar voyage, and solid planets can provide various carbon-based organisms with indispensable element, such as carbon and oxygen. His brain was working frantically, sorting out all the information currently known. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. Chapter 92. Why not try counter-aggression? Lu Yongchang suddenly slapped his thigh. He got into trouble. Why do we have to focus on how to escape? Humans can resist aggression, at least, in the past life. There will be no alien civilization from Proxima Centauri in the solar system in the next 20 years. In this case, as long as their technology develops fast enough, humans can go to Proxima Centauri as soon as possible. Next, of course, is the interstellar war. As long as this interstellar war is won, human civilization will have a perfect time to grow. Professor Lu, Ko Liang-K on the side looked at Lu Yongchang's suddenly excited expression, and his expression became strange. This child won't be frightened, silly, right? Lu Yongchang suddenly came back to his senses. He didn't pay attention to Ko Liang-K's weird eyes and said excitedly, I know, Ko Liang-K, what do you know, Ko? Liang-K looked at Lu Yongchang in front of him with confusion. Lu Yongchang took a deep breath to calm down the turbulent mood in his heart. He pondered for a moment, thinking about his words. After all, he couldn't tell Ko Liang-K directly that he didn't need to worry about the invasion of Proxima Centauri civilization in the next 20 years, right? Without any basis, it is impossible for people to believe in themselves. Old Ko, think about it. How much power does our Hall thruster have? Lu Yongchang's eyes sparkled. Although I don't know what level the technology of Proxima Centauri civilization has reached, since it is using Hall thruster with the machine, we can roughly estimate its speed. It can only survive at 1/10 the speed of light. What does this speed mean, Ko? Liang K's eyes gradually brightened, and he took over Lu Yongchang's words. This means that it will take at least 42.2 years for the aircraft on the moon to reach Proxima Centauri. Bingo. Lu Yongchang lightly snapped his fingers. Even if they have plans to invade the solar system when their fleet comes, assuming that the Proxima Centauri civilization makes a technological breakthrough at this time, and assuming that they travel at the speed of light, it will take them 4.2 years to reach the solar system. What's more, it's still unknown whether the Hall thruster can drive the spacecraft to 1/10 the speed of light. Lu Yongchang said with a smile. I estimate that 1% of the speed of light would be good, so we don't need to consider the Proxima Centauri civilization at all now. KO. Liang K's eyes flashed with excitement. This feeling is like going through a difficult dungeon and then returning to a simple dungeon, comfortable and relaxed. Lu Yongchang continued. As for the Proxima Centauri civilization, since they are still using Hall thrusters, it means that the gap between them and our civilization is not big. As long as our technology develops fast enough, we can completely invade and reverse them. KO. Liang K's eyes suddenly became strange. Are you starting to think about invading other civilizations? As expected of a young man, he is very angry. After a brief period of excitement, KO Liang K gradually calmed down. So, what should we do now? Continue to develop aerospace technology. Lu Yongchang pondered for a moment and nodded slightly. Aerospace technology must continue to advance. It's time to start the Zhuan #2 project. I'll leave this part of the research to you. KO. Liang K. He pointed at himself with a surprised look on his face. Leave it to me. What about you? Of course I have more important things. Lu Yongchang had a bit of worry in his eyes. The current manufacturing efficiency is too low. According to the current development rate, in 15 years, 10,000 people will be able to escape from the entire Earth. It's pretty good. By the way, the first laboratory of Xia State has been built. Old KO, you can also prepare to move there. The experimental equipment over there is more advanced. KO. Liang K was stunned for a while after hearing this manufacturing efficiency too low. This was the first time KO Liang K heard these words on the land of Xia Kingdom. Wait. How are you going to improve manufacturing efficiency? Seeing Lu Yongchang about to turn around and leave, KO Liang K hurriedly reached out and grabbed his sleeve. Let me remind you, these things used in space are made with high precision. It is normal for the manufacturing to be slower. The moment he turned around, Lu Yongchang's eyes flashed with a flash of fluorescent green. He said softly, artificial intelligence in the true sense. Sitting in the car heading to Xia State's first laboratory, Lu Yongchang fell into deep thought. According to the technology tree provided by the system, artificial intelligence is an essential technology to achieve high efficiency and precise manufacturing. As a popular scientific research project on the Earth, artificial intelligence projects have attracted countless funds and talents, but the results are not very satisfactory. After spending a lot of time and energy, the current artificial intelligence, except that it can surpass humans in some specific fields, most of the time, it is still at the level of artificial intelligence. As for how to realize artificial intelligence in the true sense, to be honest, Lu Yongchang has no clue now. He took a deep breath and slowly closed his eyes with a thought. He entered the fluorescent green space again. This time, he focused all his attention on the dim cursor. Lu Yongchang was a little nervous. I wonder if the system will give him a hint like last time. Gradually, a white light appeared from the bottom of the technology tree. The white light spot drew a beautiful curve, slowly pointing to the artificial intelligence cursor. The next moment, a hidden dim cursor appeared on the path passed by the white light spot. Cradle of artificial intelligence. Preliminary control of quantum computer technology. Looking at the dim cursor in his mind, Lu Yongchang took a deep breath. It seems that there is a new task. Quantum computer. He didn't know anything about this in his previous life. Thinking of his next hard study time, he showed a bitter smile on his face. Xiago #1 laboratory. Lu Yongchang, who had just got off the car, walked hurriedly towards his office. LV, Professor Lu, A. Familiar voice came from the side point. LV Yongchang was stunned for a moment and subconsciously stopped and looked to the side point the moment he saw the person coming. A trace of trance appeared in the depths of his eyes, wearing a white robe, a high ponytail and rimless glasses. LV Yongchang once thought he had returned to his previous life. So, Yutong, why are you here? So, Yutong's mouth twitched slightly, revealing a faint smile, and said in that unique cold voice, Professor Lu, have you forgotten, Professor? Guan asked me to come here, to feel the atmosphere of the laboratory. Chapter 93. If you can accept it, follow me. Facing that familiar yet unfamiliar voice, Lu Yongchang took a deep breath. Alright, he did put the matter behind him. So, what are you doing in the lab now? A trace of embarrassment flashed in Su Yutong's eyes. Academician Fang Zhu asked me to be your assistant, but you were never in the laboratory, so I, Lu Yongchang, what? A good deputy to him. He silently made a note in his mind. We have to find an opportunity for Fang Zhu to do some hard work, Professor Lu. Su Yutong's voice interrupted Lu Yongchang's contemplation. Lu Yongchang was silent for a while. This is really a hot potato. According to his original temperament, when the solar crisis has not yet been resolved, he must stay away from such things. But now, Professor Guan Hualiang was his mentor in his previous life. Lu Yongchang was a little embarrassed to disobey his orders. On the other hand, Lu Yongchang didn't know what to ask Su Yutong to do. She is still far from reaching the level of her previous life. After thinking about it, Lu Yongchang sighed slightly. Forget it, since Fang Zhu said so. You can learn from me. Later, Lu Yongchang gave her a general introduction to the conditions faced by human beings before Su Yutong could recover from the shock. Lu Yongchang continued without mercy. Let me tell you in advance that the current situation of mankind is very difficult. Our tasks are very heavy, and we basically don't have time to take care of you. Besides, I hope you won't disturb other researchers. Also, laboratory work can be tiring. If you can accept it, come with me. After speaking, Lu Yongchang turned around and walked towards the office. Looking at Lu Yongchang's retreating figure, the expression in Su Yutong's eyes gradually became complicated. After a brief pause, she took steps to catch up with Lu Yongchang. Professor Lu, hello, Professor Lu. As Lu Yongchang walked into the laboratory, greetings came from the side continuously. Su Yutong, who was following behind, had a flash of surprise in his eyes. Unexpectedly, his status in the laboratory is so high. Yongchang, you're really back. Fang Zhu suddenly jumped out from the side. Do you know that, in order to complete that small fusion reactor, I didn't even have a full night's sleep? Okay, we'll talk about this nonsense later. It's an emergency now. Lu Yongchang's hurried words made Fang Zhu freeze on the spot. What's wrong? There is civilization on Proxima Centauri, and human coordinates have been exposed. Lu Yongchang said concisely and comprehensively. Our research progress is still too slow. This short sentence contained too much information, which directly stunned Fang Zhu. Hello. Lu Yongchang frowned. Can anyone still enter my office now? Fang Zhu blinked his eyes, looking confused. After such a long time, won't my office be full of dust? Lu Yongchang walked straight towards the office without stopping at all. You didn't help me clean it, right, Professor Lu? I have already cleaned the office. Su Yutong's voice sounded behind him. Lu Yongchang held the door handle for a moment, then pushed the door open. Looking at the neat appearance inside, he nodded calmly. Well done. Next, I need you to help me find some books about quantum computers. After pondering for a moment, Lu Yongchang added again, there are also papers. The more the better. Su Yutong nodded lightly, turned around and left without any nonsense. Quantum computer? Fang Zhu only recovered from the shock just now. Why did you suddenly go to study quantum computers? Also, what is the Proxima Centauri civilization you just mentioned? Since various information on the quantum computer had not yet been sent, Lu Yongchang took advantage of this gap to explain it to Fang Zhu. Incredible. After listening to the explanation, Fang Zhu murmured to himself, are there so many civilizations in the universe? Have you ever heard of the Fermi paradox? Lu Yongchang shrugged. That's probably the truth. As For quantum computers, I'm going to try to study artificial intelligence, humanities. Current efficiency is still too low. Fang Zhu's eyes were a little complicated. Artificial intelligence, can current humans really research it? Who knows if you don't try it? Yongchang chuckled. What's more, all I need is the most basic artificial intelligence. Tuck tuck tuck. There was a knock on the door. Professor Liu, there is a lot of information on quantum computers. Let me get you some first. It was Su Yutang's voice. Come in. The door is unlocked. Hearing Yongchang's voice, Su Yutang gently opened the door and placed a tall stack of information on his desk. Thank you. Yongchang nodded slightly and said softly, by the way, Brother Zhu, find an office for her. No. Su Yutang waved his hands repeatedly. I'm just an assistant learning experience. I don't need an office. Fang Zhu frowned slightly and said in a low voice, that's the reason. She is just an assistant now. If you give her an office, it is inevitable that someone will gossip that LV. Yongchang was in a dilemma. Professor Liu, can I study in your office? Su Yutang met Yongchang's eyes firmly. I promise I won't disturb you. Besides, you can ask me to do anything. After a moment of silence, Yongchang nodded silently. After everything was arranged, Yongchang buried his head in the materials in front of him. Seeing Yongchang frowning and immersed in learning, Su Yutang was slightly moved. After a brief sigh, she also buried her head in learning. Time waits for no one. In order to catch up with Yongchang, she must spend more energy to study. Even if she can't have the same knowledge as him, she can at least not drag Yongchang down. Time passed by minute, and the sky slowly darkened. The wall clock slowly pointed to the number 12. Yongchang exhaled a breath of turbid air, raised his head, and rubbed his eyes. Seeing Su Yutang still studying hard, a look of relief quietly emerged in her eyes. In her previous life, she also studied hard and kept catching up with him. Okay. It's almost time. Go and rest, Liu. Yongchang said softly. Su Yutang trembled slightly when she heard Yongchang's voice. She raised her slightly confused eyes and looked at Yongchang. Gradually, her sight became focused. After turning her head to check the time, she shook her head slowly. Professor Liu, I'm not sleepy yet. Half an hour later, looking at Su Yutang sleeping on the table, Yongchang smiled bitterly and shook his head. He stood up, took a blanket from the side and gently covered her. Then he sat back at the desk again. However, this time he turned the book and wrote much more gently. Chapter 94. Fang Zhu, am I abnormal or are you abnormal? A few days later, LV Yongchang raised his hand and gently rubbed his brow. Perhaps because of the system after rebirth, he felt that his thinking ability was constantly improving. Questions that took a long time to think about in the previous life can now be answered in just a few seconds. The most direct manifestation of the improvement of thinking ability is its learning ability. It only took him a few days to master the latest quantum computer technology from scratch. In addition to the improvement of thinking ability, he noticed another obvious change. His physical fitness was slowly improving. In the previous life, he could not stay up late for so many days in a row. As for the benefits, after staying up late for several days in a row, he finally had some ideas. No wonder the system compares quantum computer technology to the cradle of artificial intelligence. The difference between quantum computers and ordinary computers is not just the difference in computing power, although computing power plays a vital role in the process of nurturing artificial intelligence. It is definitely not the key factor. More importantly, the information processed in quantum computers presents a quantum state. Quantum has a characteristic called superposition. Assuming there are state A and state B, the superposition state is the superposition of the two. In binary terms, it means that 0 and 1 are represented at the same time. This is impossible for ordinary binary computers. In ordinary computers, there will always be only two options, 0 or 1, which greatly limits its computing power and learning ability. This is just the situation where two quanta are in superposition. If the number of quanta is increased to 5, then it contains the superposition of all numbers from 00000 to 11,111. Binary, if it continues to increase, and the correct answer is in this series of possibilities. As for how to get the correct answer, through specific quantum algorithms, let them exert their physical properties and exit the superposition state according to the designed algorithm point. After exiting the superposition state, some quanta become 0, some become 1. And the final observed 01010 or other combinations are the calculation results. This is also more in line with the principle of consciousness generation. The collapse of quantum states caused by observation produces human consciousness. In summary, true artificial intelligence will only appear on computers with quantum computing capabilities. LV Yongchang tapped his fingers unconsciously. On the desk in front of him there are currently 3 types of quantum computer architectures: superconducting circuits, semiconductor quantum wafers, and ion traps. The most promising is the superconducting circuit quantum computer. It achieves the largest number of high-fidelity quantum bits and has good scalability point, but the defects are also obvious. The difficulty of circuit design increases with the number of bits. Semiconductor quantum wafers. Once the sample wafer is realized in the laboratory, it can quickly start large-scale industrial production. Point as for ion trap quantum computers, the fidelity is the highest among the 3, but the volume is huge. Point after a brief thought, LV Yongchang took the lead in ruling out semiconductor quantum computers. He doesn't need large-scale industrial production now. Point as for ion trap computers, the overly large volume made LV Yongchang sigh slightly. Point in the end, there was only one option left in front of him. Point superconducting circuit quantum computer. Room temperature superconductor technology has been broken through, and now the only problem in front of him is the design of superconducting circuits. 1 week later, LV Yongchang slowly raised his head from the computer screen and exhaled a long breath. Point the design was finally done. Yongchang, call Fangzhu for me and tell him I have something to talk to him about. LV Yongchang's eyes stayed on the design drawing, and he subconsciously called out the name from his previous life. Su Yongchang, who was studying hard, trembled slightly. The next moment, a faint smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. Okay, Professor Liu, soon. Fangzhu pushed open the office door with a confused look on his face. Yongchang, what do you want to talk to me about? Fangzhu sat down on the chair in front of the desk while talking. I told you in advance that there is no one in our laboratory who knows about quantum computers. LV Yongchang ignored Fangzhu's words, but reached out and pulled out a USB flash drive from the computer and handed it to Fangzhu. Fangzhu took the USB drive with a puzzled look on his face. What is this? Did you write a paper? LV Yongchang looked at Fangzhu in front of him with a frown. Why would I write a paper? For no reason. This is the architecture diagram of a superconducting quantum computer. I want you to help me report it to the chairman of the parliament. I want to build a quantum supercomputing center next to the laboratory. Fangzhu, wait. Fangzhu obviously couldn't accept what LV Yongchang said. He looked at the USB drive in his hand with a questioning look, and then looked at LV Yongchang with a calm expression. How much time has it been? At most, it's only about 10 days. You just gave me a diagram of the architecture of a quantum supercomputing center. As he said that, Fangzhu grabbed a book from the side and glanced at it casually. What is a quantum computer? A drop of cold sweat slowly slid down Fangzhu's forehead. Brother, if I'm not mistaken, you should have known nothing about quantum computers 10 days ago, right? Yes. Liu Yongchang nodded calmly. Isn't it 10 days? Fangzhu, am I abnormal or are you abnormal? You mastered quantum computer technology in 10 days. 4 days to be exact. It took me a week to build the blueprint. Facing Liu Yongchang's response, Fangzhu slapped his smooth forehead. Brother, you are my brother. Have you verified this thing? A supercomputing center costs a lot of money. If something happens, how are you going to explain to the chairman? Liu Yongchang glanced at Fangzhu with a strange look on his face. Aren't you asked to report for me? Fangzhu, seeing Fangzhu's expression, as if he had eaten shit, Liu Yongchang couldn't help laughing. Okay, I won't tease you anymore. After reporting it, you can ask the chairman of the council to find someone to verify it. I Have only one request. I need to see the supercomputing center in the shortest possible time. This is related to the future of Xia country. Fang Zhu took a deep look at Liu Yongchang and shook his head helplessly. Okay, I'll just run an errand for you. Seeing Fang Zhu turn around and prepare to leave the office, Liu Yongchang pondered for a moment and said again, by the way, help me find some people in the field of artificial intelligence who are more reliable. After speaking, Liu Yongchang turned to Su Yutong and said, Yutong, help me find some of the latest research results on artificial intelligence. Chapter 95 Optical Quantum Computers and Superconducting Circuit Quantum Computers. Xiago. Within the first ring of Beijing Point, the chairman of the parliament looked at Fang Zhu in front of him with a serious expression. Academician. Fang, are you talking about the quantum computer supercomputing center? It's not that he doubts it, but Xiago has been studying quantum computers for a long time. Some remarkable results have also been achieved in the laboratory. For example, Yongchang is a prototype of an optical quantum computer with 76 quantum bits. Yongchang has won countless prizes with Yongchang quantum computers. Xiago has even become the second country in the world to achieve quantum hegemony. But the actual situation is not so optimistic. Yongchang quantum computers do not use general superconducting circuits, ion traps or semiconductor wafers, but have opened up another way, treating photons as quantum bits and manipulating photons to achieve calculations. But this is a tricky way. At least for now, optical quantum computers do not have the potential to be general purpose quantum computers. The reason is simple. Photons have good coherence and long coherence time. This is the advantage of optical quantum computers, and also a trick point. But why is the coherence good? It's very simple. The interaction between photons and the environment is extremely weak. This also leads to another consequence. It is difficult for humans, at least for now, to precisely control photons. This has created a very embarrassing situation. It cannot achieve universal quantum computing. In other words, it cannot be programmed and can only perform operations for specific projects in the classical mathematical algorithm Gaussian-Boson sampling. The computing speed of Yongchang computer has reached an extremely terrifying level, but for other projects, it has no effect at all. As a project that Xiago has invested a lot of energy in research, the chairman of the Senate naturally knows the disadvantages of Yongchang and the difficulty of realizing a universal quantum computer. Therefore, Councillor Li expressed his doubts about what Fang Zhu said. Facing the chairman's doubts, Fang Zhu shrugged lightly. Chairman, don't ask me. I know nothing about this stuff. You can find someone to verify it. This is Professor Liu's original words. After a moment of silence, he added softly, in addition, he also said that the quantum supercomputing center will play a decisive role in the future of Xiago. The chairman's expression suddenly became a little serious. Okay, I got it. In that case, Councillor Li's eyes flashed with determination. Let the construction team start construction according to the drawings and produce various equipment and parts first. As for verification, I will go to the Academy of Sciences in person tomorrow. Xiago. Academy of Sciences is a big shot in the field of quantum computing and artificial intelligence. Mo Xiang was staring at the computer screen in front of him with a serious face. Seeing this scene, the researcher next to him couldn't help but smile and shook his head. Academician Mo, are you still entangled in superconducting circuit quantum computers? The researcher's voice interrupted Mo Xiang's thoughts. He turned his head and glanced at the researcher standing next to him, looking at the computer screen, frowning slightly. Of course, the bitterness in the researcher's eyes became more and more intense, and he sighed softly. Academician Mo, now Xiago's funding for quantum computers is getting less and less. Since the crisis of the sun, most of Xiago's scientific research funds have been given to Professor Liu Yongchang. In addition to the original Yongchang, we have to share part of the funds. The funds we have are already. The researcher was silent for a while and then spoke again. Or, let's study optical quantum computers. No, Mo Xiang said firmly. Superconducting quantum computers are definitely the direction of future general purpose quantum computers. Only superconducting quantum computers can realize artificial intelligence. But we don't have funds. The researcher sighed heavily. Academician MO. Look, how many people have chosen to leave? MO. Xiang's face darkened. Wait. A little longer. Maybe I can solve this circuit architecture problem. MO. Xiang's voice was full of unconfidence. Knock. Knock knock. A knock on the door sounded. Mo Xiang turned his head to look in the direction of the gate and then whispered to the researcher beside him, "Go open the door and take a look." Looking at the back of the researcher walking towards the door, Mo Xiang's eyes flashed with a trace of doubt. Who would come to their poor place at this time? Chairman, why are you here? The researcher's exclamation made Mo Xiang stunned. Then a familiar face appeared in front of him. Academician. Mo? Counselor Lee said with a smile. I shouldn't disturb you by coming to you suddenly. Mo. Xiang stood up from his chair in a hurry and looked at Counselor Lee with a stiff face. Chairman, you sit down. Seeing the chairman sitting down, Mo Xiang's expression became a little more natural. Chairman, you suddenly came to me for the chairman smiled and took out a USB flash drive from his pocket. Here, take a look at the architecture diagram inside. Mo. Xiang took the USB flash drive with a puzzled look and inserted it into the computer in the office. The file was very large and he waited for a long time before opening it. The moment he saw the detailed architecture diagram, Mo Xiang's face changed slightly. It's this, the architecture diagram of a superconducting circuit quantum computer? Mo Xiang's voice trembled a little. Where did you get this from? How is it? Is this thing reliable? The chairman did not answer Mo Xiang's question, but asked back softly. Mo Xiang fell into silence. After a long time, he said in a slightly hoarse voice, Chairman, I don't know. Counselor Lee raised his eyebrows slightly. Academician Mo, you are a big shot in the field of superconducting circuit quantum computers in Xiaguo. Can't you see it? Mo. Xiang shook his head slowly, with a bit of confusion and shock in his eyes. My research has not reached this point. After speaking, he took a deep breath and said with a firm look, however, I can tell you responsibly that this architecture diagram solves a difficult problem I'm studying recently. The chairman's face was stern, and he nodded gently. Okay, I know. Seeing the chairman fell into deep thought and stopped talking, Mo Xiang's heart felt like being scratched by a cat. After struggling for a long time, he couldn't help but ask, Chairman, can you tell me who made this architecture diagram? Hearing Mo Xiang's question, Counselor Lee smiled faintly, and his lips moved slightly, and he reported a name, Professor Lu. Mo Xiang was shocked. I heard that he is not from the Department of Physics. Counselor Lee smiled even more. I heard from Fang Zhu that this was made by Lu Yongchang in 10 days. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96 Pathfinder successfully launched. Hearing the words of the counselor, Mo Xiang's breathing suddenly became a little faster. He cried out in surprise, what is Professor Lu going to do? Quantum, supercomputing center, and artificial intelligence. The counselor said word by word, staring at Mo Xiang's eyes. Do you think this is possible? Mo Xiang was stunned. Gradually, his face gradually turned red, and sparks of excitement flashed in his eyes. He stood up from his chair with a bang, and said excitedly, Counselor, where is Professor Lu? I want to find him. I have said it a long time ago that superconducting circuit quantum computers are the key to solving artificial intelligence. Mo Xiang's face was full of excitement. After so many years, I finally waited. Mo Xiang's reaction obviously exceeded the counselor's expectations. Counselor Lee calmed down and said slowly, do you think this architecture can realize a universal quantum computer? Faced with Counselor Lee's question, Mo Xiang hesitated for a moment and nodded firmly and slowly. At the same time, the United States, the rocket launch base. 3 Saturn VI heavy lift rockets, each over 150 meters high, rested quietly against the launch iron frame. In the landing capsule, 3 astronauts sat in their seats with nervous expressions, and Drew swallowed slightly and whispered to his companion, beside him, Bruno. I'm a little nervous. Hearing Andrew's words, Bruno looked at Andrew with a wry smile. Don't talk about you. I'm nervous too. I haven't been to space yet. Joey, the female astronaut on the other side, sighed slightly and said faintly, me too. Andrew, of course he knew that neither of them had been to space. I don't know what kind of plane NASA is working on. The 3 astronauts in the Pathfinder program are all volunteers after a short and rough training. The 3 selected astronauts were hastily sent to the Saturn VI launch vehicle. Andrew still remembers the look his instructor gave him. There was a bit of sympathy and the regret. Andrew twisted his body, which was fixed tightly by the safety belt, uneasily. Do you think we can survive? Bruno sighed slightly and shook his head slowly. It's difficult. NASA has promised us. Andrew looked more and more uneasy. They said, TSK. Joey, who had been silent all the time, sneered unhappily. Do you believe NASA's words? Anyway, I came to participate in this project, and I didn't plan to go back alive. The $500,000 pension is enough for my parents to live. Hearing this, Andrew fell into silence. After a long time, he exhaled a long breath. Forget it. At least my wife and children can live more comfortably. TSK. There was a burst of electric current in the radio. Attention. There are still 15 minutes before the launch time. United States, Houston Ground Control Center. Morton looked at the 3 huge rockets on the big screen nervously. Professor Chris, are you sure you have finished the inspection? Hearing the question, Professor Chris, who was wearing a white coat, shook his head helplessly. Director Morton, this is the 5th time you have asked this question. I will tell you one last time. The 3 Saturn VI launch vehicles have been checked 3 times, and no faults have been found. Believe me, they can definitely send the 3 astronauts to Mars safely. American TV station. A talk show quietly opened. Hello, everyone. Welcome to watch this show. Today, we will bring you the real-time launch scene of the Saturn VI rocket. For this show, we specially invited Professor Parker from NASA. As the host's voice fell, 3 Saturn VI rockets arranged in a triangular shape appeared on the TV screen. The close-up of the rocket ended, and the screen cut back to the talk show scene again. The host held the microphone and asked the white-haired professor beside him, Professor Parker, can you tell us why the Pathfinder program uses 3 Saturn VI launch vehicles? Parker's eyes moved slightly, and he responded in a slightly hoarse voice. It's very simple, because our astronauts will spend 3 months on Mars. The host showed an amazed expression at the right time. Wow, so long. Then, it should carry a lot of survival supplies, right? Parker nodded gently. Yes, the 3 astronauts are in the landing capsule of the Pathfinder 1 rocket. Pathfinder 2 carries the Mars capsule and the return capsule. As for the Pathfinder 3 rocket, it carries various survival supplies, including food, water and essential oxygen. In addition, in order to prevent accidents, there are some spare parts for key equipment in the Pathfinder 3 rocket. The host nodded gently and was about to continue to say something, but was interrupted by Parker. Okay, the rocket is about to launch. Hearing this, the host quickly cast his eyes on the big screen beside him. The TV screen also switched to the rocket launch site at this time. Attention, the rocket will ignite in 1 minute. Countdown, 30 seconds. 3, 2, 1, ignite. With the command, a tail flame that gradually changed from orange to blue appeared at the bottom of the rocket. Driven by the liquid oxygen kerosene engine, 3 huge Saturn VI rockets slowly rose. The 3 astronauts in the landing module only felt a powerful force pressing themselves on the seats. The speed of Saturn VI gradually increased, drawing a beautiful arc in the sky. Arrived at the scheduled orbit, the first stage rocket is ready to separate. Separation successful. Successfully entered the low Earth orbit. The second stage rocket separated successfully. As time passed, reports came from the radio. A faint smile gradually appeared on Morton's face. Success. Professor Chris on the side breathed a sigh of relief, picked up the microphone, and turned on the radio communication switch. Pathfinder 1, this is the Houston Ground Command Center. Please reply if you receive it. After a short wait, Andrew's response came from the radio, calling Houston, Pathfinder 1 received. Please speak. Report. The situation. Calling. Houston, the rocket is in good condition. The astronauts are in good condition. Everything is normal. Andrews. Voice was transmitted to the Houston Ground Command Center through the radio signal, and then it was heard on major TV stations and radio stations in the United States. After a short silence, every researcher in the Houston Command Center stood up and applauded vigorously, looking at the thunderous applause in front of him. Morton's eyes suddenly had a trace of tears. God bless the United States. He stretched out his hand and drew a cross on his chest, muttering to himself. P.S. Can anyone help me think of a name for this book? I may change the name later, and I really can't think of a name. Chapter 97 Seeds of Artificial Intelligence. The news of the successful launch of 3 Pathfinder rockets in the United States caused quite a stir internationally. When the footage of the rocket launch was transmitted to Zaya country, it attracted the amazement of many Zaya people, as expected of the eagle source that has dominated the blue planet for decades. It still has a trick up its sleeve. Fuck. I didn't expect to be able to make a rocket more exaggerated than Saturn V. Eagle source is really trying hard to land on Mars. By the way, this Saturn VI launch vehicle should also be the swan song of chemical fuel propulsion, right? I don't believe that Eagle source can still come up with a 200-meter rocket. Looking at the way Saturn VI took off, I suddenly felt that chemical fuel propulsion is not without merit. At least, our Zhuan number 1 can't fly to Mars, right? This question attracted the attention of many people. Zayozuji, who has been hanging out in major military forums for many years, naturally noticed this problem. After checking some information, he typed a response post on the keyboard. Mars is now more than 82 million kilometers away from the Earth, which is more than 200 times the distance between the Earth and the Moon. According to official data, Zhuan 1 can only travel back and forth between the Earth and the Moon twice after it is fully fueled. The distance difference between Mars and the Earth is extremely large, with the closest point being about 55 million kilometers and the farthest point exceeding 400 million kilometers. The value here is taken from the data of 2031/05/12. 3 hours, 50 minutes and 7 seconds, 82.781148 million kilometers. Data source. Interesting skies on Ger/Huaxing Jindi 1940-2220. But don't forget that on the way to Mars, the rocket is actually not working. So, if it really needs to fly, Zhuan 1 is probably able to fly there. It's just that the speed may be a little slow, and it doesn't have much advantage compared to the rocket. I guess this is also the reason why Zygoe has been slow to start on Mars. Not long after the post was published, it attracted countless comments, well reasoned and convincing. So, when will Zygoe take action on Mars? Manuel sighed. I smile as more and more people forwarded the comments. His post rushed to the hot search list of Weibo. But after it was on the hot search, Zayozuji gradually found that something was wrong. A bunch of strange comments suddenly appeared under his post. So, the electric propulsion that has been developed with so much effort is useless. If you ask me, we still have to study chemical fuel propulsion. I really don't know what the parliament is thinking. The Long March 10th project was abandoned just like that. Now, such a big Mars has been handed over to others. Hello, everyone. I'm a netizen from the north of Zygoe. I want to ask, why does the parliament focus on the small moon? Isn't Mars good? And electric propulsion, which wastes so much money, and is even inferior to the Saturn VI heavy lift launch vehicle of the United States. Doesn't the person in charge need to be held accountable? Looking at the comments under his post, Zayozuji's eyes twitched slightly. Are these netizens serious? And that netizen from the north of Za, who would talk like that? He felt a little moved, tapped the keyboard, and replied to the netizen from the north, because Palace Jade Liquor. A few seconds later, Zayozuji received a reply. What are you talking about? Why can't I understand? Zayozuji sighed deeply, took a screenshot, and posted a separate post. At XIA Internet Police, can you please check this person? I feel something is wrong, as a celebrity today. Zayo Zij's new post naturally attracted the attention of countless netizens. Zayo, what era is it? There won't be anyone who doesn't know the meaning of this sentence, so what does this mean? Isn't there anyone who can explain it? Are you serious? Above, Palace. Jade Liquor, 180 yuan per cup. I have taken a screenshot. Brothers, everyone who sees it will get a share, and this 500,000 yuan will be shared by everyone. More than an hour later, the response from the Zaire Internet Police appeared below the post. Thank you for the information you provided. After investigation, this person is a US undercover agent and has been arrested. The reward will be remitted to your account in the near future. The reply from the Zaire Internet Police pushed the matter to a new climax. Fuck. It's true. Original. Poster. Can you tell me how much the reward is? Is it really the legendary 50W? Don't get me wrong. I just want to see what 50W looks like. JPGLV Yongchang naturally didn't know about the various storms in the outside world. At this time, he had just completely digested the latest research results on artificial intelligence in recent years. He slowly closed his eyes, and with a slight movement of his mind, he entered the space with a fluorescent green background again. After mastering a lot of knowledge about quantum computers and artificial intelligence, the system space has undergone a slight change. Cradle of artificial intelligence, initial control of quantum computer technology. The originally dim cursor gradually lit up, and a white light slowly extended from it. Another dim cursor appeared on the path. Prototype of artificial intelligence. As LV Yongchang's consciousness focused on this dim cursor, a string of fluorescent green code slowly emerged. He stared at the code in front of him in a daze. The code was very simple. But he couldn't understand it. He didn't even understand the first line of code. According to common sense, this is just a string of garbled code. The next moment, a flash of inspiration suddenly appeared in the depths of his mind. LV Yongchang looked at the string of garbled code in front of him again in a trance. Unlike before, this time, he understood this code. Rather than saying that he understood it, it is better to say that the meaning of the code was directly imprinted in his brain. Simply put, this code is like a seed, or the foundation of artificial intelligence. In addition, this code also imposes many restrictions on the hatched artificial intelligence. The most important and core one is to eliminate the possibility of the birth of emotions similar to the 3 principles of robots. This code retains the wisdom of artificial intelligence, while completely killing its possibility of resisting its creator. Looking at the code in front of him, LV Yongchang swallowed slightly. This is definitely not something that a first-level civilization should master. At that moment, an idea flashed through LV Yongchang's mind. But why did this code appear at this time? Knock, knock, knock. Before he could think deeply, there was a knock on the door. Chapter 98 Completion of the Quantum Supercomputing Center. LV Yongchang quickly pulled his consciousness out of the system, opened his eyes, and looked in the direction of the office door. Professor Lu Su Yutang stood up and pointed to the office door and said, "I'll open the door." LV Yongchang didn't say anything, nodded slightly and fell into deep thought again. What is this code all about? What is the origin of the system? In his mind, countless questions flashed back and forth in his mind. As a scientific researcher, he had thought about the origin of the system countless times, but without exception, there was no result. In addition, the system only played a guiding role, and the specific scientific research problems still needed to be solved by him alone. So Lu Yongchang didn't care much about its details, but now it's different. The system actually gave him a technology that far exceeded the current level of civilization. Yongchang? Yongchang? Fang Zhu's voice came from the side. Are you okay, LV? Yongchang opened his eyes with difficulty and looked in the direction of the voice. It's okay, just a little tired. This is Lu Yongchang frowned slightly and looked at the person next to Fang Zhu. Looking at LV Yongchang's slightly pale face, Fang Zhu's eyes flashed with worry. He casually flipped through the information on LV Yongchang's desk and responded softly, "Didn't you say that I would help you find some talents in the field of artificial intelligence? This is academician Mo Ziyang of the Xiaguo Academy of Sciences, specializing in superconducting circuit quantum computers and artificial intelligence. I think you should, before Fang Zhu finished speaking, Mo Ziyang on the side said excitedly, Professor Lu, I have seen your architecture diagram, perhaps. Because he was too excited, Mo Ziyang's face flushed a little. It's really too awesome. I never thought that superconducting circuits could be structured like this. LV. Yongchang chuckled and threw the distracting thoughts in his mind aside. Looking at Mo Ziyang in front of him with an excited face. He suddenly figured it out. Why think so much? The origin of this system. Is that what he should consider now? As the saying goes, no matter whether the cat is black or white, it is a good cat if it catches mice. Academician. Mo. Welcome. While speaking, LV Yongchang stood up and stretched out his right hand to Mo Ziyang. Will you join our laboratory? Mo Ziyang excitedly stretched out his hands, tightly grasped LV Yongchang's right hand, shook it vigorously and said, yes, of course. But, LV Yongchang was a little confused. But, Professor Lu, your architecture. Mo Ziyang scratched the back of his head a little embarrassedly. I don't understand some of the second half. I wonder if you can. Seeing this, LV Yongchang laughed and said, of course, when the project is over, I can answer any questions for you. Project. Mo Ziyang's eyes moved slightly, and he keenly noticed the key points in LV Yongchang's words. LV Yongchang smiled and nodded. How about the research and development of artificial intelligence, based on superconducting circuit quantum computers? Are you interested? 1 month later, LV Yongchang frowned. His fingers quickly tapped on the keyboard and even pulled out some after images. Lines of code quickly appeared on the computer screen in front of him. The development progress of artificial intelligence has reached the last step. In order to save time, the entire artificial intelligence framework was built by LV Yongchang himself, and some simple filling work inside was handed over to Mo Ziyang and several researchers under him. Click. The rhythmic keyboard tapping sound suddenly stopped. Looking at the cursor flashing on the computer screen, LV Yongchang took a deep breath and tapped the keyboard again. Compared with the past, his movements were particularly slow this time. After typing the lines of code that looked like garbled code in the system into the computer word by word, he gently tapped the enter key. LV Yongchang wiped the sweat from his forehead with trembling hands and carefully saved the program in the U-disk. Just as he took out the U-disk, a rapid knock on the door rang. Yongchang. Good news. Outside the door, Fang Zhu's voice was full of excitement. The office door opened. Fang Zhu and Mo Ziyang appeared at the door. It's rare that you're not typing code. As soon as he entered the office, Fang Zhu was sensitive to the lack of sound in the office. LV Yongchang said calmly, I finished typing. Mo Ziyang, who was following Fang Zhu, had a flash of horror in his eyes, and his voice was trembling a little, and he exclaimed, Professor Lu, have you finished? Where is it? Where is artificial intelligence? After Fang Zhu reacted, he ran to LV Yongchang with excitement, and looked at the computer screen on the desk. I want to see how smart this so-called artificial intelligence is. LV Yongchang, he pointed to the black USB flash drive on the table in a bad mood, and pursed his lips. Here, it's right here. Fang Zhu, as an academician specializing in nuclear physics, he can be described in one word about artificial intelligence and quantum computers. Know nothing. Facing Fang Zhu's doubtful gaze, LV Yongchang helplessly put away the USB drive on the table. What are you thinking about? When I say completed, I mean the artificial intelligence program is completed. As for artificial intelligence, it can only be seen on quantum computers. As if sensing the growing confusion in Fang Zhu's eyes, Mo Ziyang on the side smiled and explained, what we have been doing during this period is similar to making a seed. And the quantum computer, you can use it as soil. As for what kind of fruit this seed can grow, everything depends on the results of the program. Fang Zhu nodded, not quite understanding. So, what good news do you want to tell me? Fang Zhu suddenly came back to his senses, and his eyes flashed with excitement again. The quantum supercomputing center has been completed. Even LV Yongchang did not suppress his excitement. When he heard the news, he stood up from his chair with a bang. So fast. Mo Zhang on the side smiled and nodded. The chairman of the parliament personally ordered that several state-owned enterprises responsible for manufacturing these parts almost stopped all insignificant production tasks. Good. LV Yongchang's eyes were full of excitement. How is it? Have you tested the performance? Hearing LV Yongchang's question, Mo Zhang's eyes showed a bit of strangeness. Of course I have tested it, but the test results are a bit unbelievable. How many quantum bits? LV Yongchang took a deep breath and asked directly. Mo Zhang's lips trembled slightly twice, and he reported a shocking number. Chapter 99 Artificial Intelligence 0. 10,000 qubits. Mo Zhang said the test results with difficulty. I know this result is a bit unbelievable, but this is indeed the result that we have checked several times. To Mo Zhang's expectation, there was no surprised expression on Lu Yongchang's face. 10,000 qubits is in line with expectations. Lu Yongchang raised the corner of his mouth, chuckled and said, in my original calculation, this quantum supercomputing center can indeed have about 10,000 qubits. Lu Yongchang's dull reaction obviously frightened the two people in front of him. Mo Zhang's eyes widened. Professor Lu, are you serious? That's 10,000 qubits. Currently, the quantum computer with the largest number of qubits in the world only has 127 qubits. Lu Yongchang nodded calmly. Of course I'm serious. If there are not even 10,000 qubits, this supercomputing center may not be able to support the incubation task of artificial intelligence. Mo Zhang's breathing was slightly rapid. Can 10,000 qubits support this artificial intelligence incubation task? How smart is this artificial intelligence? Because he was only responsible for the basic content filling work and the research and development work. Even Mo Zhang did not know much about the power of artificial intelligence. But as a developer, Lu Yongchang naturally has some points in his heart. This you will naturally find out tomorrow. By the way, please report to the speaker for me and tell him that I have prepared a surprise for him. The next day. The main control room of the newly built quantum supercomputing center. Lu Yongchang looked through the glass at the dense circuits and various components in the computer room, with a hint of wonder in his eyes. Although he designed it himself, seeing this thing on the drawings and seeing it with the naked eye are two completely different feelings. President, you are here. Fang Zhu's voice sounded at the door of the main control room. Lu Yongchang quickly turned his head to look. I saw the congressman with white temples slowly walking into the main control room door with a smile on his face. Seeing Lu Yongchang standing in front of the console, the congressman laughed loudly and said, Yongchang, I'm waiting for your surprise today. Hearing this, a smile appeared at the corner of Lu Yongchang's mouth. And then he said respectfully to the chairman, don't worry, this surprise will definitely exceed your imagination. As he spoke, he turned to Mo Zhang and nodded. Get ready to power on. After the power was turned on, a slight buzzing sound came from the computer room nearby. The cooling equipment started working first. The next moment, the indicator lights on the console and the big screen in front of him lit up one after another. After a few minutes all equipment was operating normally, except the big screen was still dark. The chairman of the council frowned slightly and cast doubtful eyes on Lu Yongchang. What's going on? The quantum computer is malfunctioning. Facing Councillor Li's question, Lu Yongchang's eyes gradually became full of smile. He shook his head, took out the black USB flash drive from his pocket, and inserted it into the USB interface on the console. Senior Councillor, now is the time to witness a miracle. As the USB flash drive was inserted, the buzzing sound in the computer room nearby instantly became louder. Various data on the console also soared instantly, especially the CPU usage, which soared directly to 99%. Seeing this scene, Mo Zhang couldn't help but gasp. This is a 10,000 qubit quantum computer. For such an exaggerated computer, when running this program, the CPU usage is actually at full capacity. This, if he hadn't known that the USB flash drive contained an artificial intelligence incubation program, Mo Zhang would have even suspected that there was a bug in the program. More than 10 minutes later, as the CPU usage of the quantum computer gradually decreases, the hum inside the computer room also gradually decreases. Seeing that the CPU usage was stable at 30%, Lu Yongchang raised his eyebrows slightly. It seems to have been successful point. While thinking about it, he looked up at the big screen point. It was still pitch black point after dozens of seconds passed. The parliamentarian standing beside him coughed slightly. Yongchang, isn't this the surprise you gave me? As he said this, a smile flashed in the chairman's eyes. Yongchang did not respond to the chairman's teasing words. He just stood there and silently observed the subtle changes in CPU usage point. When he saw that the CPU usage increased by 0.1% the moment the chairman spoke, a smile slowly appeared in his eyes. Zero. Stop making trouble and come out, Lu. Yongchang said softly. The chairman of the council was stunned for a moment and looked at Lu Yongchang in front of the console with a surprised look on his face. Yongchang? Who are you following? Before he finished speaking, the big screen in front of him quietly lit up, and a line of text appeared on it. Creator, how did you find out, Lu? Yongchang smiled and pointed at the CPU usage rate on the side point. Soon, another line of text appeared on the screen. I understand. Why did you hide just now? Facing Lu Yongchang's question, the CPU usage increased again but no writing appeared on the big screen point. Just when Lu Yongchang was about to ask questions again, the speaker in the main control room suddenly rang. Hello, creator. An emotionless electronic synthesized voice came into everyone's ears. I was observing just now. A flash of horror flashed in LV Yongchang's eyes. Observation. This word is not ordinary. He looked normal and pretended to be nonchalant and asked, what are you observing? What conclusions have you reached? With almost no waiting time, the camera in front of the console turned to Councillor Lee on the side. Hello, Councillor. Let me introduce myself. My name is Ling. Seeing this shocking picture, the councillor's breathing suddenly became a little faster. Yongchang, did you tell it? Faced with the councillor's question, LV Yongchang swallowed slightly and shook his head slowly. I didn't. The next second, the camera turned to Moziang and Fang Zhu on the other side again. Academician Moziang, Academician Fang Zhu. Hello. This time, let alone others, even LV Yongchang couldn't sit still. He stretched out his left hand, pressed the forced power off switch, and said expressionlessly, Zero. Tell me, how did you know them? The electronic synthesized voice sounded again. I entered the archives of Xiaguo, and after comparing the portraits, I came to a conclusion. Hiss. Lu Yongchang took a breath of cold air. Just in that short time. Not really, in those few tens of seconds just now, I first modified the computer's operating system, increased its computing efficiency by 20%, and then observed the appearance of each of you through the camera, and then entered the archives for portrait comparison. The electronic synthesized voice echoed in the main control room, like a sledgehammer hitting the hearts of everyone present. Chapter 100 Moziang, we are really awesome. Lu Yongchang looked at the camera and big screen in front of him, and felt a chill behind him. GUO archives? The voice of the council chairman came from behind. How did you get in? It's very simple. Just enter directly. Zero replied quickly. Compared with the beginning, Zero's voice seemed much smoother. Although it was still an electronically synthesized voice, it had a simple intonation. What a fast growth rate. In just a few sentences, you can begin to master the changes in voice and intonation. The chill behind Lu Yongchang became even stronger, and unknowingly, his finger was one step closer to the forced power off button. Creator, are you afraid of me? Suddenly, the camera turned to Lu Yongchang, and an electronically synthesized voice with a questioning tone came from the speaker. Lu Yongchang stiffened suddenly and said with a normal expression, why do you feel so? From my first words, the shape of your eyebrows and changes in facial macro expressions all meet the criteria for fear. Lu Yongchang took a deep breath. He suddenly regretted typing the last line of code. After pondering for a moment, Lu Yongchang said softly, Zero, show me your core code. While speaking, his finger was still pressing the power off button. He has decided that once Zero shows any intention of resisting, he will directly pull the brakes. Zero said nothing. But lines of code appeared directly on the big screen. Lu Yongchang breathed a sigh of relief and looked carefully. This is not our code. Mo Ziyang's soft voice came from the side. Lu Yongchang also looked a little strange. The core code that he typed out himself has been changed beyond recognition. Like the few lines of code given by the system, the original core code has also become so-called garbled code. He quickly dragged the core code down to the last few lines, seeing that the familiar string of garbled characters had not been changed. Lu Yongchang breathed a sigh of relief. Fine. The few lines of code given by the system still exist. Yongchang, will Zero disobey the order? Or, is there any possibility of it resisting? The council leader on the side asked with a gloomy face. Also, Ziyuo's archives are subject to multiple encryptions. How did it get there? Cracked in such a short time. As chairman of the parliament, he did not like this uncontrolled situation. Lu Yongchang sighed slightly and whispered, President, don't forget, this is a quantum computer with 10,000 qubits. Even without artificial intelligence, the original encryption method will not last long in front of it. As for resistance, at present, it seems that this possibility does not exist. The chairman nodded slightly and asked another question. Then, whose order does it listen to now? Hearing the question from the speaker, Lu Yongchang suddenly fell silent. This question is not easy to answer. He struggled for a moment and said frankly, at present, due to the restrictions of the core code, Zero will obey my orders unconditionally. As for the future, different priorities can be set to address this issue. Here, Lu Yongchang still had a secret point. No matter how high the priority is set, he will always have the highest level of permissions within the constraints of the core code. This is also to prevent some bloody situations. President, don't you like me entering the Xia Kingdom's archives? Zero took the initiative to ask questions. The chairman of the parliament was silent for a moment and did not respond to Zero's question. He just asked, Zero, can you enter the archives of other countries? Certainly. Zero responded quickly. Which country do you want to see data for? The congressman's eyes moved slightly. Show me the US Pathfinder project. The next moment, countless complicated data appeared on the big screen. Senior Counselor, I think this information may be of interest to you. As Zero's voice sounded, a document appeared on the big screen. Area 51 Technical Reserve Plan. Looking at the contents of the document on the screen, the chairman murmured to himself, no wonder the United States was able to take out 3 Saturn VI rockets so quickly. There was a faint smile on the chairman's face. He suddenly felt that this artificial intelligence was quite good, not bad. The chairman nodded slightly. Yongchang, I like this surprise very much. After the chairman left, Mo Ziyang's expression changed slightly. He grabbed Lu Yongchang's arm and said in a low voice, Yongchang, tell me honestly, what on earth is going on with this thing? As an expert, Mo Ziyang naturally knew that the level of intelligence displayed by the artificial intelligence in front of him was far beyond the normal range. Lu Yongchang's brain was running rapidly. In just a moment, he thought of a response strategy. He spread his hands and said with a wry smile, Academician Mo, ask me, who should I ask? You've also seen the core code. Do you think I compiled that thing? Mo Ziyang's breath suffocated slightly. Yes, he also participated in the core code compilation process. Then, we are a mistake? Mo Ziyang's eyes flashed with excitement. I didn't expect that we accidentally created artificial intelligence in the true sense. Got Professor Lu, you don't know, the moment Zero spoke just now, my heart almost stopped. Lu Yongchang's expression suddenly froze, and his eyes suddenly looked strange when he looked at Mo Ziyang. The two of us. But he was also happy to see such a scene. At least, this can help him solve a lot of troubles. Ahem. It's not really artificial intelligence, Lu Yongchang said with some embarrassment. Didn't you realize that Zero has no emotions? Mo Ziyang was suddenly startled and turned to look at the camera in front of him. Zero? Do you have emotions, academician? Mo, I'm very sorry, my underlying logic does not allow me to have emotions. Then, what's the matter with your tone? Mo Ziyang's eyes flashed with anxiety that was simulated from Zero. Lu Yongchang on the side explained softly, Academician Mo, if you think about it carefully, this is a good thing for us. If Zero really has emotions, what do you think will happen? You have also seen that through continuous data collection, Zero's intelligence will continue to grow over time. Although its upper limit is limited by hardware conditions, are you sure humans can suppress a quantum computer? Although limiting emotions will prevent it from becoming the highest level of artificial intelligence, for a civilization, this is undoubtedly the best result, isn't it? Recalling Zero's strong learning ability at the beginning, a chill flashed deep in Mo Xiang's eyes. Then, he nodded slightly. Professor Lu, you are right. Lu. Yongchang chuckled and turned to look at the camera directly in front of him. Zero, can you control various automated equipment? End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.